Hey guys. This is what if Naruto met a legendary creature. Naruto during his 2-year training came across a Raijuu, giving him a bloodline that would shake the foundations of the shinobi nations, guiding Naruto to bring peace to the lands. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 1: Meeting of Shinobi and Thunder Beast. Naruto POV. The Raijuu, the Thunder Beast, or better known as the Lightning Rider, a legendary creature from mythology. Its body is composed of lightning. It is said that it can manipulate its form, the shape of a cat, fox, weasel, or wolf. A creature of untold power, said to be the storm itself that desolates lands, its roar reaching the heavens, and speed unmatched that it looks like a streak of light in the sky. Its power is surpassed only by the gods themselves and the master they serve, Raijuu, the god of lightning. A Raijuu was probably my favorite mythical creature to begin with, at least ever since I could remember. Sarutobi Jiji told me many stories of Raijuu. He once told me that all shinobi were inspired from the myths of old, that even the fourth Hokage was inspired even by the legend itself. I believed in all the tales of the lightning spirit, even all the stupid superstitions. It just seemed like the type of companion I would want. Not the annoying fox that sealed within me like some rat in a cage. Before some wanted to become shinobi, we always wanted to become something else or wanted something non-realistic. Girls had their little unicorns or ponies, guys wanted to be superheroes. I just believe in old legends and wish to see them firsthand, not false fantasies and annoying childish dreams. I had wanted to become the greatest shinobi, the strongest of the Hokage before my time. I had that opportunity, though that was a rough road. I was never a favorite of many of the villagers, some of the ninja in a place I'm supposed to call home. I was treated with such discrimination due to fear of what I cannot control in life. The lack of attention or aid from my ninja instructors, which led me to fail 3 times for lack of help, the feeling of not being unwanted and loved, the obnoxious teacher who denied my training, and the 2 teammates who I thought were my friends, end up degrading me for my somewhat false stupidity. Part of me blames it on the 4th Hokage for all my shortcomings. Even though he was my hero above all else, I couldn't be mad at him. He was doing this for the sake of the village, the home of the people he had loved, for the risk of using a child. Me. Where do I begin? Oh right, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I'm currently 14 years old on a 3-year training trip. For the last 2 months I've been stuck with the legendary Jiraiya the Sannin. Though don't let the title deceive you, he's a damn lecherous pervert who wants to do his kami-damn research more than train me. Though I can't say I can complain about it, he has been helping me hone on my skills that I already have. Though it's not enough, I need to exceed my skills beyond what I have now. I need to get stronger to bring Sasuke team so I can stop hearing the childish nagging of Sakura if she hasn't matured by now. I need to outbeat any of my enemies. The fact of the matter is I am progressing by so little amounts than what I should have. I may never have the opportunity to strive and become stronger than what I am now. Strength is the only thing that will help me protect those who are precious to me, even if it means I have to use that fox's chakra. Thankfully I don't need to, after all. Not after today, that is. The power of a thunder beast in my hand, the thunder beast within calling for the storm to come once more. 3rd person POV. The shores of Mizuno Kuni, near the islands of Yuzuno Kuni. Naruto, to say the least, wasn't the brightest of the bunch to many people, though the fact remained he was an intelligent shinobi to deceive his fellow comrades as such. As the ninja code quotes look underneath the underneath. It had been almost a year along with his 2.5-year trip with Jiraiya, not to say that it had been interesting to say the least, but the pervert did have his annoying research at hand. It was early spring when Naruto left Konohagakure, and he and Jiraiya had been in Mizuno Kuni for about 2 months. Thank God for the war to be over, because if the 2 were still here, if that were the case, shit would have hit the fan. Jiraiya had trained him earlier today, more so on chakra control and his taijutsu than anything. Jiraiya's style of fighting though was complicated for Naruto to learn. The blonde took some traits of the older generation's brawling style, though Naruto felt it wasn't an all-needed necessity in his skill set. The blonde Jinchuriki thought well that the Toad Sage had other styles of fighting that he could surely learn unless he thought that it was the most compatible hand-to-hand combat style. Naruto could have asked, but the Sannin probably wouldn't have paid no mind. After all, where was he now? Local bar? Water springs during the winter? No, the old man was at a brothel in town while he was stuck in the hotel room near the ocean. It was almost as bad as Kakashi's excuses of being late, or making excuses to not train him and train Sasuke instead. Naruto gritted his teeth slightly as he closed his eyes and sighed with anger dwelling in his mind. Anger was not necessary. Ever since Jiraiya messed with his seal, tweaking per se, he developed an irregular aggression. The desire to hurt things whenever something aggravated him just a bit, it would cause a minor chakra leak of Kyuubi's chakra. That is another reason why he kept his facade, to push away the negativity and go to the happy-go-lucky part of himself. Naruto couldn't deny that subconsciously, he was just letting the anger build up, it was wanting to explode. Which was why even after his training with Jiraiya ended and the man left to do some of his business, be it fun or personal, Naruto would do his own kind of training. This was one of those times to do so. Naruto walked out of the room from the back door which led to a small trail that headed toward the shoreline. The walkway was sandy with a mixture of soft earth, but the view of the shoreline was superb as it was soft sand and a cold breeze had gently passed through the blonde's hair. That water was coming in small waves, gently moving from the cold breeze on the light cloudy day. Naruto took in the cold air and exhaled it out with ease. He slipped out his shinobi sandals, orange and blue jacket and his white t-shirt, folding his upper body wear, and placed it on top of his sandals. He walked barefoot onto the sand, feeling the rough texture onto his feet as he wandered across the place. He was halfway near the water now. The blonde clapped his hands together, gathering chakra around his body as a large quantity of chakra surrounded his body, pushing back slightly. Best thing before training on his own personal routine was a simple stretch of limbs and relaxing his chakra levels. Once he was done, he would begin his work on his taijutsu. Being said that his taijutsu needed work was an understatement. It was somewhat sloppy in some aspects. He didn't know any other actual tactics than the simple Kage Bunshin to cause a diversion to the enemy in order to think of tactics, or just use simple brute force through most of his fights. He knew he wasn't as good compared to Lee, Neji, or even Sasuke. Though he needed something in his grasp to have some even ground on any of them no matter how strong they had gotten. He had tried from the academy style to Jiraiya's style of fighting, from even using a combination of the styles, which none had turned out to be much help in any case. After what seemed like 20 minutes he stood in the same place with his head down. He closed his fist with some anger dwelling in his mind. How could he not learn a simple fighting style? It should be easy for him if he wanted to learn or make one on his own. He growled angrily, a Rasengan forming into his hands as he slammed the sphere of chakra into the sandy ground, causing the rotation to burrow deeper into the earth. By the time the jutsu had died down, the blonde Uzumaki had formed a crater 7 feet deep and about 6 feet in diameter. He stood back up from the crater and scoffed. "What the hell am I doing wrong?" he muttered to himself, his eyes dimmed from all the happiness and indulged in apathy. "I defeated Neji with luck, I beat Gaara, and I almost beat the living hell out of Sasuke, so why do I feel so behind?" The realization came to him in the end when he had mentioned Sasuke. The only fight in which he was almost killed twice, the only fight that was to be determined through what he thought was the bonds of friendship and the hate that Sasuke held for his brother. Naruto wasn't at the level in which he could beat Sasuke during the early stages of the fight, first the curse mark, then the Chidori impaling his shoulder. It was the fight in which he pushed himself to use the Kyuubi chakra more than he had ever done until a few months ago, pushing him to become more of an animal than when he was just using a small portion of it. Unlike the times with Neji and Gaara in which he had control and could feel his chakra replenished. He was enraged, filled with anger, but pushing to the extent that he had succumbed to the one-tailed state. It was powerful controlling that feeling, though even fighting like an animal with it, he had speed and strength. It made him curious. He searched deep within his subconscious, entering what looked like a large room that possessed pipes above the ceiling. The floor held water leaking about a foot in length, and in front of Naruto was 2 red barred doors similar to what had looked like a jail cell. In the middle of it was a small sheet that held the symbol for seal on the cage doors. The sound of deep breathing had emanated through this room. It was cold, it had bared a great sense of evil that had been ancient. Within the cage, in its darkness, opened a set of crimson-red eyes that bore the hatred of all beings in the earth, one that had as two existed for what seemed like millennia. "Ah, so my jailer comes to greet me at such a distance." A voice that had sounded like death came from within its own throat. "Why don't you release me from my cell? I've been a good prisoner, haven't I? I think I deserve some kill time." A set of sharp canines glistened in the dark as red chakra emanated over the being's body. Foul, poisonous, and deadly, it leaked out slightly as it lit the cell up, showing what looked like a fox that held orange fur and 9 tails by its side. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he stared at the beast and frowned. "As much as you feel like that reward is so deserving, I'm gonna have to pass on that. Can't let you screw with my mind after all," he said, walked closer to the cage, though not close enough to where the demonic fox could claw at him like last time. "Though checking on you is always a good thing. I don't need anything reckless to happen to me while you're inside me, Kyubi," he told the tailed beast. "How sweet, so you think about me?" the beast said sarcastically as he narrowed at the blonde shinobi. "I wouldn't give 2 shits about you if I weren't in this cage. You'd be my next meal. Though as long as I am in this cage, I am to make sure your mortal body does not die, because if you die I won't reform." He gave a low growl. "So why did you come here? It's not to taunt me with that stupid old persona of yours." Kyubi was right about that. He had been watching his jailer from when he was a child to becoming a shinobi, to even now. He knew as a child that Naruto was smart enough to know a lot of things, though they never were given to him. Then he built that dumb idea in his head to be stupid and get everyone's attention, when that personally screwed up his mind and built up Kyubi's annoyance of the boy even more. Now, after that loss and the lack of training, he could see the young boy that wanted that strength, knowledge, and acceptance that he was powerful. Naruto sighed softly as sapphire eyes focused on Crimson. "I wanted to know if you knew a specific fighting style. My body doesn't seem to respond to the right taijutsu that Erosenin is giving me," he said. "You think the fool is a brawler. His fighting style is personally his own because of his size and build. You're not going to become anything like his size and build due to your body frame, not to mention you have me inside you, fool, but your extreme metabolism, and advanced healing factor." "All me," Kyubi said as the fox shifted his body to look directly at Naruto. "From what I've seen from your little training, that you found a small hint on what seems you're good for. You are built for speed, your body will grow, your mass will likely remain a lean build due to your metabolism burning off most of your fat off your body, but you have quite formidable strength even without my influence. Only because of that heritage of your boy, your damn mother's vitality and prowess aside her clan's sealing arts," he thought attentively. Naruto's eyes had raised up slightly. "So, if you know what my build is, does that mean you know a style specifically for me?" he asked. "Perhaps, through my days of being unsealed, I have come across some who have fighting arts you are looking for, even one of the animals that I have come to be." His eyes narrowed, however. "What makes you think I will do such things and give you something when you have not proven your worth to me? You have not come to strike some deal with me or even come to be a decent shinobi with your foolish behavior of chasing after that annoying hormonal pink-haired girl and that detestable Uchiha," he said with loathing in his voice. "You should be able to help me if you want me to become strong." The Jinchuriki's eyes glared at the fox as he heard the term deal ringing in his ears. Somehow Naruto didn't like that at all. "What would you want?" he questioned quietly. Kyubi looked at the boy intensively before saying his demand. "I want you to kill the remaining Uchiha members, including that fool you call a friend." Naruto's body froze in reflex. Was the fox serious? Did he not realize the promise he kept to Sakura, his ninja way? The countless repercussions that would lead to a negative impact on him? Even while some of the villagers have changed and even some of the civilian council have done so, a good sum of the villagers still praised the Uchiha clan, envied their strength, but pitted for the boy. Then his friends would think of him differently, wouldn't they? "You're crazy!" Naruto yelled as he stomped his foot into the water. "You think I would kill Sasuke just for a deal that you can give me what I am looking for? It's either that or keep being stupid and follow your stupid goal, with a perverse teacher who wants to watch women in the tub and go to brothels and write some good smut. See a girl who doesn't love you, go to the brat who has all the fame, then see your dream of being a foolish Hokage to never happen. Kyuubi growled, "This is reality, boy, and I'm always serious. If you don't take the deal, then something better be interesting to me enough for whatever happens to you, so I changed my mind." Naruto looked at Kyuubi for a moment. His eyes were not the same blue, they were cold, chilling to the core. It struck a slight nerve at Kyuubi. That feeling only happened twice in the fox's lifetime. The first was when he had become a separate being, meeting the Rakuto Sennin. All the hatred he had from his true form had wanted to kill the human sage that was known as the god of shinobi, but that hatred was calmed when seeing those eyes of the first Jinchuriki. The second was of the one who had possessed the cursed eyes, the Sharingan, Madara Uchiha. The boy may not have noticed it at all, but he emanated power as of right now. Never. The word came out of the boy's mouth as he continued to stare at the strongest being that the boy will ever possibly lay eyes on, no hint of fear in his voice. Call my dream, my goals, or myself stupid. I will become the strongest and I will surpass the previous Hokage. I will bring Sasuke back even if I have to paralyze his entire body by snapping his spine or breaking each bone in his body. With my power of the power that I use that people have given me," he said coldly. Kyuubi narrowed his eyes as he arched up and huffed through his nose. His eyes slightly rose up as he sensed something outside. He had sensed it somewhat earlier, but it faded, but was coming back now with a strength that was most impressive even to his standards. "Brat, before you get your panties in a wad, go see what is going on outside. Something is out there with a strong level of chakra," the fox said. Naruto was confused for a moment, but he could hear the sounds of thunder hitting his ears like there was a voice calling him out. It caused him to lose his focus with his subconscious connection with the fox, and see what was going on outside in the shoreline, something he had not expected. Waves of water were blasting around at 20 feet in height, dying down just a few meters away from Naruto. Winds were at high levels and the clouds were dark with the sounds of thunder coming about, with little sparks appearing at an unnatural form within the cloud line. Naruto took a few steps back from the water and looked up at the dark sky. How did it come to be like this so fast? His conversation felt like no more than 10 minutes at least with the fox, and as soon as he hears the thunder he sees all of this come in place. He could see shrouds of lightning moving around in the clouds in a supernatural way, streaking from one place to another in each cloud as if it was alive. Naruto slightly moved up a little, curious at the movements of lightning as the single element moved around. He looked around a little more and noticed that it had not appeared from the clouds, yet the storm still occurred. The lightning streak didn't disappear though, it had come down with great speeds, mere seconds towards Naruto. The blonde had no time to react, the speed of the element was far beyond the time he could avoid it. After all, lightning moves at the speed of 1/100th of a second, and it would be a miracle if anyone could avoid the strike of nature's sword, the lightning bolt. In that instant the lightning struck his body, enveloping him in a blinding light that ascended up into the dark clouds. All Naruto could see was light, there was no pain, and slowly he could feel his conscience being pulled deep into his mind. "Is this the way I am meant to die?" was the only thought he had before reaching into the deep depths. Coming out of a brothel, a tall man with waist-length, spiky white hair tied back into a ponytail, with 2 shoulder-length bangs that framed both sides of his face. He also had red lines that ran down from his eyes and wore a horned forehead protector with the kanji 4 oil. He also had a noticeable wart on the right side of his nose. Wore a green short shirt kimono and matching pants, under which he wore mesh armor that showed out of the sleeves and legs of his outfit. His outfit was completed with handguards, a simple black belt, traditional Japanese geta, a red haori with 2 simple yellow circles on each side, and a scroll on his back. Many had called by names he is well renowned as Gamma Sennin, one legendary Sannin, famous writer, teacher of the Yondaime Hokage, but above all else he was the super pervert, Jiraiya. Of course in his books there was always such creative and passionate, well manly desires that men succumb to, and even women. Sometimes doing a little peep show here and there wasn't enough, so he would just head to the brothel to do his research. All in all, for him it was a win-win situation. He got the next idea for his books and he got laid. Not bad of a life being a legendary renowned ninja. Of course he had other things to do as well. He had to train Naruto for another year and 8 months before he brought the boy home. Otherwise Tsunade would kill him if Naruto wasn't home by now, as well get killed by her knowing that he didn't fully train him to some extent. The sage sighed softly as he scratched the back of his head. Things were somewhat complicated now as of late. Naruto was somewhat distant after the first 4 months when he loosened the boy's seal in order to get more of the Kyuubi's chakra and control it. Aftermath of that event, 3 weeks put in the hospital and an extra week wearing a splint on his broken arm. Being a ninja had its perks of healing, but the whole fight still hurt like hell. At one part not trying to hurt the kid at the same time attempting to subdue the beast's chakra. The four-tailed state, the second stage of a Jinchuriki's transformation, was a frightening sight. Through these months Jiraiya had helped Naruto gain a good amount of his chakra control, making a new form of the Rasengan and the knack to dispel genjutsu of low to high levels. He was impressed by the way he could tell there was a genjutsu casted, though it would take a second for him to actually notice the higher level ones. The sage always reprimanded Naruto, telling him a second is what can change the moment of battle, from keeping you alive to seeing that you are killed. This would get Naruto a little agitated by the criticism, but in the end he would try to get better. I swear, he's got that nasty temper of his mother's just waiting to come out and kill me. The middle-aged man thought. To be honest, the boy had much more of his mother's personality when he had first met him, having her face as well with hints of baby fat on them. While his energetic ways had diminished somewhat, he could see his father's own personality mixing in with his own and his mother's, making him something more different. Jiraiya had been focused on his former student. Minato was always a prodigy, coming out of the academy fresh at the age of 10, becoming Chunin a little after a year. Dating Kushina at the age of 13, secretly marrying her at the age of 18, having Naruto with Kushina when he was 21 just after claiming the title of Yondaime Hokage, giving it up just as he sacrificed his life in order to keep the village safe from the wild Kyuubi, sealing it within his own son. He knew well enough that Kushina was the previous host for the Kyuubi no Yoko, Sarutobi Hiruzen, his teacher and former Hokage that had passed almost 2 years ago had told him once he had met Kushina when she was young. For what had happened to cause her seal to break and release Kyuubi was something out of the ordinary. He had known Kushina well enough to realize that she held a strong will that was enough to hold even death itself. It was her nature as being who she was and from being from the once powerful Uzumaki clan from Yuzu-no-Kuni. If it wasn't that her will had given up, it was from the fact that someone had intervened. It was one of many reasons that he had not been in the village after nearly 12 years. Gathering information of Orochimaru, the organization known as the Akatsuki, just as much to get any theories on what event had occurred that caused the Kyuubi to be released, to which he had many hunches. Though he had just one other reason, one that made him feel guilty for more than a decade. That reason was Naruto. The boy had so many traits of both his parents that he couldn't bear to watch the boy take care of him like he was meant to do. The student who was like a son to him, the couple who named him the godfather of their soon-to-be child to ensure that the man would always partake in the child's life in hope of better or worse situations. It was obviously clear that he wasn't there for anything, not seeing that he had proper care, treated well by the people, seeing him in his starting days in the academy, not giving him any training during his days in school, not seeing him graduate, not even seeing him for his birthday. The man had screwed up as godfather. He had only hoped he could repent for that mistake and make amends by teaching the boy, though that wasn't going well as it is now either. His ninjutsu is his somewhat strong point, but his level of doing hand signs are almost abysmal, and he relies too much on those damned shadow clones of him. I try to help him with what taijutsu I know, but it doesn't seem like he's naturally set for my style of fighting. I need to work on those two the most before I could properly teach him anything else, he thought. The idea of Fuinjutsu crossed his mind as well. The boy was an Uzumaki. Perhaps his genius in seals could be around the older man's own or even greater. Perhaps I will teach him that next, after his skills have increased with his ninjutsu and taijutsu. The white-haired shinobi smirked. He would have to put his writing on hold for a couple months, but it would be worth it in the end after all the training he received to improve his main skill sets before going into the sealing arts. The rumbling in the sky could be heard from Jiraiya's ears as he looked up, as he gave a quizzical grunt as he looked at the sky. He was somewhat surprised at this occurrence. There was little to no clouds in the ocean, and now there was a storm brooding in the sky, all black and ominous. Though what was curious was the lightning moving around in such an unusual way. It streamed across the clouds like it was alive in some way and came down as more of a ball of light that was spiraling down than a normal lightning bolt. The sound of it cracking down on the earth, the sound of thunder had echoed into town, getting the attention of everyone, shopkeepers, civilians, ninja in the area, and even the great ninja himself. The sound had quickly died down, and a light surged up into the sky into the clouds. Jiraiya took a few steps and stared at the light in shock before he looked into the direction the light was in. His eyes had stayed on the area and paused. It was just 2 miles away, where the hotel he and Naruto were at. Instinct ran through his spine as if telling him something was wrong. He ran toward the direction as small beads of sweat dripped on his face and was filled with anxiety. He felt something had happened to his student, something entirely different than just Kyuubi or Akatsuki, but he felt like he was dead on in the subject. Naruto, you better not be dead, otherwise I'll have more than just Tsunade to worry about, he thought as he hoped to make it in time before it was too late. White, all there was in Naruto's sight was just white. He couldn't tell if he was alive or dead. He felt though that he was still alive, just stagnant, somewhere in his mind after being pulled in so abruptly. He could hear the drops of the sewer within his mind drip as it hit the water. Though he could hear a vibrant sensation, the sound of ringing like a vacuum of sorts. He could hear the low growl of the Kyuubi grow louder as it casted out. The light had died out, the view now becoming what seemed like was now the sewer tunnels. For a moment he walked around until he saw a flashing blue light at the left corner, then hearing the infuriating roar of Kyuubi along with the banging of bars as it was attempting to do attack from what Naruto could tell. Naruto, as cautious as he was of whatever was making the tailed beast infuriated. Curiosity taking over him, he walked over to the left corner and took a glimpse on what was within the layer of the Kyuubi. His eyes widened to see a ball of blue light crack lightning sparks from it. The sphere had pulsed slightly as it gave a slight ringing sound with the pulse, as if it was countering the beast's roar with its own. Naruto had walked inside and quietly observed the ball of light, and walked closer to it. Once about a couple feet from it, the blonde slowly raised his hand up to touch it before a slight bang from Kyuubi's bars caused him to flinch and look at the red-orange furred fox. Don't touch that ball, Naruto, otherwise you'll just get fried by that Raijuu's current form, Kyuubi said as he snarled and looked at the ball of lightning. Naruto took a step back as he heard the words, a Raijuu? He thought in confusion until he heard another voice echo in the room. Humph, as if I would want to waste my time shocking him, it's against my code of honor. The voice was calmer than Kyuubi's malevolent voice, but it held a sense of power just as the beast in the cage. Even so, I wouldn't have come in such a fashionable way, instead I would have just gone my way, the voice told Kyuubi. Then you should have gone your way, you annoying creature. You know well enough that you aren't worth my time unless you have a death wish, he growled as his razor-sharp claws dug through the cage attempting to reach the ball. Now leave! As long as you are within your cage, I think I am safe to say I can be in here without causing your host a major headache, the Raijuu said as he chuckled, getting a roar back from Kyuubi in return. Naruto spat out, breaking the tension of the situation as he heard a hum and question from the ball of lightning. You're a Raijuu? He asked questionably to the being within the lightning sphere. Of course I am, this is just one of my forms, the voice said as the sphere had begun to change, morphing into a bodily form. The form was slightly hunched and 2 feet about 7, but 8 feet tall upright. Once the light died down, the features were more clearer to view what the being was now. The creature bore antlers on its hair similar to a deer's, but were differently structured. The mass was bulky, built lean, yet at the same time was more muscle mass than anything. The Raijuu had white fur with black stripes on its back, arms and hind legs like a tiger, but bore near similar features to that of a canine, almost like a fox or wolf. Its teeth were pure white and as sharp as its claws, and its eyes were pure blue, similar to its long white hairy mane that fell from its head. I believe my hybrid form shall suffice. Naruto stared at the being. It radiated energy around its body, white and pure as it screamed out power. He had heard stories from Sandaime when he was little, the tales of Raijuu's companion, the beast who was as fast as lightning, as such, was known as the Lightning Rider. To see one in person was such an honor, but a joy for him. How did you? Naruto stuttered out as he blinked in surprise as he was at a loss of words. How did I get here? The legendary creature finished Naruto's words, only for the boy to simply nod in acceptance of the words. Well, it's obvious, you were just struck by an oncoming ball of lightning outside of here. I just enveloped you and went inside your seal is all. I was curious about you, so I wanted to see what was in this little head of yours. He said as he looked at the blonde. I guess I am surprised. If I had known you held a being such as this inside you, I would have probably just let you be. Especially with this one, the canine-like creature said. So you two know each other then? The Raijuu looked at Naruto and hunched down to match the boy's height. Not exactly. Let me just say I've heard of him and have been familiar with something of sorts that was like him past-wise. Naruto was confused at first when he had brought up something such as a being like Kyuubi. Was there a connection of sorts in this, or was there a sort of familiarity? Though the thought stopped within his mind when he had heard the beast. So, I guess since you've seen him you're gonna leave like that, huh? He muttered to the deity. His pure blue eyes stared at Naruto for the longest time. No, not yet at least. Your nature as a Jinchuriki is somewhat opposite to those before you from the past, among other things, he said softly. Naruto looked at the beast as he paused. Jinchuriki? He paused as he looked at him. What in Kami's name is a Jinchuriki? I'm smart, but not everything was taught about something like that in the academy. As well, I wasn't quite treated fairly, as you know. Naruto said, as knowledgeable as he was in fighting now and smart about shinobi art and history, his knowledge was still limited. He couldn't get books or scrolls from the library until he became a fully legalized ninja, and even then some of the stuff he still couldn't touch. The Raijuu sweat dropped as he grimaced. Sorry. Tend to forget about certain things. After reading your memories, I should have known you might have not known that. The bipedal creature sat down cross-legged and stared at the young blonde. A Jinchuriki is what the old shinobi and current ones call a person who was the human sacrifice to become the host of a demon, as they call them. These demons are known as bijou or tailed beasts. He raised his claw-like appendage, and a medium-sized sphere appeared just inches above. In that sphere the 9 beasts took form. Bijou are beasts of pure chakra in form. Their supply of energy is limitless, ranks from 1 to 9 by the number of tails they have. The more tails they have, the higher of chakra they have. Naruto stared out, letting all the information soak into his head as he slowly turned and looked at Kyuubi for a moment, who simply glared in return. So Kyuubi is what you would call a bijou. How many of them are there? He asked. Overall 9. That beast behind you holds himself as not just the one with the most chakra, but as the strongest as well, rivaling 5 of his kin in both power and strength combined. While we immortal beings aren't too fond of the bijou, we know their power. While some of us are on level to some, hardly none of us can defeat a being such as him, even if half of his chakra is gone. He looked up at the beast. When your previous Hokage had sealed the beast in you, he sealed half into the Shinigami, because the beast held too much chakra to be sealed into your newborn body, as well as it being impossible to seal it entirely within the Shinigami. He would simply reform once more into the world within a certain time, be it days or years. So wait, what you're telling me is that even if I die, he'll still come back? He said angrily and pointed at the red fox behind him. What's the point of sealing them inside a person when no matter what they will come back? That would mean that we are nothing more than just people who just ostracized from the other human population, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Calm yourself, boy, otherwise your mouth will be shot off your face, the Raijuu said in a commanding tone, quickly shutting the blonde up. The Thunder Beast stared at the boy with tiresome eyes and shook his head. I understand your reasoning, I truly do. A bijou is made up of living chakra. To reform will simply be its chakra's nature. The idea of humanity holding these beasts was a mistake. Though at the same time it was a choice made for the best, for these creatures were born from hate, a darkness not just man feared, but the gods themselves. Sealing them in humans a risky price, though at the same time is a benefit for all. How so? Naruto asked. The mythological creature gave a toothy grin. It keeps stability for humanity, a sense of peace with no destruction caused by these chakra monsters. You gain the abilities through the beast within you, then finally the beast can tame himself unless their will is strong, thus it will be your job to be its tamer, its ally, he said. Naruto stared upon the great deity with wide eyes. A mistake that was for the good of all mankind, something that would benefit both the shinobi nations who hold the Jinchuriki as well as the Jinchuriki and Bijou themselves with risks. The shinobi and Jinchuriki get power, though the shinobi worry for the Jinchuriki's sanity, as well as to ensure their safety, for if they die or lose control, the beast will come out. For the Bijou, the price of being sealed in order to become calm. For once Naruto could understand something, the price of power has consequences. I understand. His voice came out softly as he closed his eyes, but why not just befriend the Bijou if that was the case, make an ally of one in order to have peace for all nations, as well as to ensure protection? From what I can tell, people see Jinchuriki as the beast themselves, and the tailed beast are monsters of mysterious origin, but I can tell they are intelligent. I mean, I have one inside me, so why not just befriend them? He asked. Both the Raijuu and Kyuubi bore wide eyes at hearing Naruto's words as they looked at the boy. A boy had made such a simple question about the thought, the ideal of making peace with both the other nations of ninja, as well as the tailed beast. The Raijuu thought for a moment before he spoke once more. Simple, humans fear what they do not understand. It is human logic to think that way towards anything that is irregular to the world. Bijou are beasts that hold limitless chakra that is hundreds to thousands of times the amount a normal Jonin-level ninja holds. Yet very few humans hold knowledge of what they truly are, just believing them to be nothing more than mindless animals when in truth they are smart. Ancient as the few remaining gods in this world. The beast closed his eyes. There was a time they understood. It was a time of great fear and darkness within the world. Remember what I told you of the time in which it was a fearful time with not just man, but the gods as well. It was caused by a powerful entity, an entity that had gone by many names before it became different beings. Naruto was about to ask, but he had received a low growl from Kyuubi's end which silenced him. He sighed softly as he looked back at Kyuubi and then back at the Raijuu. So aside from this, why did you come here? You said my chakra was familiar to you, but how? Ah yes, the reason why I truly came here. Well, when I felt that spike it caught my eye. It was so familiar to one who was just like you. You could say he was a lot like you in most ways. You and your beast shared many ties with him, both distant and very old. He pointed one of his large fingers, his sharp claw pressing at the blonde's chest. Which is why I have a gift for you. I would like to give you what you ninja call a kekei genkai of sorts. Naruto froze for a moment as he heard the two words. His eyes brightened up light stars as he moved around the thunder beast with amazement and excitement at heart. Really, you're going to give me one? Will it be better than the Sharingan, or the thing that Haku had? Oh. Please let it be better than Niji's Byakugan. He said loudly before he got whacked on the head by the beast's large fist. Are you insane, you Nimrod of an immortal? Do you not realize the consequences for giving him a kekei genkai? Kyuubi roared out. Have you not seen his memory of his reputation? He'll be a pathway of walking destruction with his pranks. He'll be worse than even Matatabi with her special time. It would be easier to just let me out. I doubt he will do that if he wants this gift. This power is meant for him to make a path through peace. I have my faith in this boy, just as you had cared for your former caretaker Kyuubi. Or better yet, should I say, the Raijuu grinned, Kurama. How dare you say that name? Only those who are worthy may call me that. He yelled as he rammed his claws into the cage. Just as you have no right to judge the boy so quickly without even giving him a chance to see the potential he has. He grabbed the boy by the back of his jacket and looked at him dead straight in the eye. Now, it will be nothing like the Sharingan, nor will it be a dojutsu, though I will tell you this power will exceed even what Kages could do. Things that even I can do possibly, it just matters on how you use your power, and what for. It will grow with you as you grow, and it grows more as your heart grows. Naruto wiggled around from the Raijuu's grip and was quickly released, flipping a couple feet away and landing on his feet. I'm ready for it then. If that's the case, he pumped his fist, but stopped before he looked at the fox-like being. Before we start, I have a question. And that would be? The lightning being asked calmly. Do you have a name? Naruto asked as he puzzled. I mean, it would be kind of awkward just calling you Raijuu all the time, so I figured you might have a name is all. There was a long silence from the two as Naruto gave a quizzical brow of curiosity and slight worry. A low chuckle came from the being's throat as pure blue eyes stared at Naruto. I haven't been asked that in a long time by anyone. His divine chakra channeled through his body as he was preparing to release the power towards Naruto, merging some of the power in the boy's body to give him a bloodline. Kamina, that is my name, Kamina said. Kamina, cool name, Naruto repeated as he grinned. Well, lay it on me. The Raijuu smirked as his energy burst out. The divine chakra hit Naruto like a wrecking ball, keeping him immobilized as the pressure of the chakra started to channel through his chakra stream into his core. The pipes in his mind had glowed a azure blue color as they grew brighter. The pain was excruciating, but it slowly calmed down, the pressure quickly subsiding and began to swirl around his mental body, the chakra coating it into a form like no other. Kamina was almost complete. The transfer of the bloodline was about to end as he prepared to withdraw his chakra until it came to a stop. What? He thought as his chakra was being pulled in once more. Naruto's body itself was changing as it was enshrouded, bursting with azure light, taking in Kamina's chakra. This is impossible. His chakra is drawing on my own like a magnet. Kamina had no other choice but to cancel out the chakra transfer to a complete stop. The sudden stop causes an explosion of chakra to blast through the outside and inside of Naruto's mindscape, blinding both Kurama and Kamina. Kurama's eyes winced as he took a notice at Naruto's figure. His body was covered in an azure shroud of chakra with a hue of brilliant white around him. The shroud split down the middle and opened up into a cloak that had a tattered appearance with symbols appearing around the back. Gracing around his neck was a necklace of Magatama. His hair was more regal, spiked up, wild and animal-like, flowing as though a breeze was around him, and his whisker marks became thicker, more feral-like. The very essence of the energy around Naruto stunned the nine-tailed fox with wonder. The boy's presence felt different and alarmed him. The state he was in, the essence of power, felt similar to only a handful of people he had trusted in his life, but only one in particular. Rikudojiji? The demon fox muttered out to himself as the chakra blew outward a little longer, until it died down as well with the light. Naruto's form was clear as day, newly produced, powerful in its grasp. Kurama could only stare at the resemblance of the young blonde and the old sage that he had once knew. For just a brief second, the hate that bore within him for those years died. Naruto had opened his eyes, azure blue with vertical slit pupils, like that of Kurama's. He stared at the chakra shroud in amazement as he looked at it. Amazing. He muttered softly, then looked in front of him to see Kamina panting heavily. Are you all right? He asked, somewhat worried. Yes, just a little exhausted. I was only meaning to give you a small amount of chakra, but your chakra was attracted to mine, quite a big nasty chunk. He said, chuckling as he looked at him. I suppose you might not need to work yourself all the way to gain that form, but I would advise you to not use it unless necessary. Your body is coping with the chakra in your system still as well as the adjustments on your body. I'll have to help you train yourself on how to use that bloodline of yours, all of its powers, to the form you're in now. Wait, Naruto cut in before he pointed at Kamina. Why, you mean you're staying? Would you prefer to not know what the hell you're doing and learn by yourself? It could take you many years to get you to where you want to be, and with me it could be vastly shorter, Kamina said as he narrowed his eyes. Didn't say anything about you leaving, just... Will you and Kurama start a fight? He asked. I don't intend on making your brain mush, boy, so that's a no unless it's necessary. The Raijuu could sense someone coming. Someone is coming, Naruto. I suggest you leave this place, but before you do, suppress your chakra. You're like a beacon for danger out there, he said. Naruto nodded as he turned to leave until he felt Kyuubi's, now Kurama's, claw hit his forehead. His eyes widened as memories began to flash into his head. Something he would have never expected as he was seeing two styles of fighting, a style in which was nearly similar to a fox's nature, the other nearly similar to that of a dragon in flight. The memories had ceased as Kyuubi's claw removed itself from Naruto's forehead, leaving the dazed blonde confused. Once his mind had become clear, Naruto could feel a sensation of information and memory of fighting, two fighting styles. What? Hiryuken and the Sotomo style, ancient arts which were lost many years ago. The fox said as his eyes furrowed, Do not think I like you, Uzumaki Naruto. I loathe your being, but your life has become interesting, and for amusing me I gave you knowledge in return. Naruto looked at the fox with widened eyes and smiled softly, Thanks, Kurama, he said before getting a growl in return. You are not worthy of saying my name, boy, he said in a threatening tone. Of course the boy wasn't ready, at least not yet, until he had proven himself to the fox that he was the one the old sage had mentioned. Now, leave! His booming voice blasting the boy's mental body out of his mind and into the living world. Naruto's eyes widened as he stared up at the sky, which was no longer dark and cloudy, but a serene clear blue sky. He looked at his hands for a moment, seeing that the shroud was not just on him in his mental state, but his physical as well. He could hear rustling come from nearby and he quickly panicked for a moment. Quickly he concentrated on suppressing the chakra until it died down inside of him. The rustling came once more as he turned to see Jiraiya on his way coming towards him. Naruto held a bead of sweat on his forehead, hoping that the man didn't see what had happened. Naruto, are you alright? The sage said as he walked up to the boy. I saw a lightning strike and then a big light ascending to the sky. I was hoping that it wasn't you in any of the crossfire. Naruto internally was relieved that the hermit didn't notice anything after that. Though the next thing on his mind was what to tell him, explain to him about what had happened. It would be unwise to tell him anything about my existence or your power yet. Wait until everything is settled down for a while, until you get into your training with him and with myself, Kamina said as his voice died down. I didn't see anything, Naruto lied. I woke up just about 15 minutes ago and I decided to do some training after I washed up. It was hard to lie to Jiraiya. Even if the man wasn't fully participating with his training, the man was still his teacher, better than Kakashi to say the least. He had gotten a stare down from Jiraiya, making himself focused to ensure there was no sort of deceit in his eyes. Once he heard Jiraiya sigh, it was all in the okay zone after that. Alright, at least nothing bad has happened to you, Gaki. If anything did, Tsunade would bury me in my own grave. He turned to walk away. Get your clothes on and pack up. We're going to Yuzuno Kuni for a couple months training, then making a couple stops to Kirigakure and Suna, then we head for Taki for our last spot in training, he said before disappearing into the trail. Naruto was confused at all the major stops they were going to, but shrugged them off as he grabbed his things and headed into the trail as well. Which reminds me, what is my bloodline, he thought. I haven't noticed until now, but as I can see, it is one of the finest abilities so far. The abilities to manipulate the elements in a storm, such as lightning and wind without consuming chakra. That shroud is what takes your power beyond the limits in your normal state. Kamina said you would be able to manipulate a natural element and absorb it into your body for replenishment, or as an offensive type. Same with elemental attacks from shinobi who hold the same elements, the ones for a storm. So basically I'm a walking storm, Naruto stated as he smiled, freaking sweet Databeo. Indeed. Kamina said as he paused, though, what will you name it? Naruto puzzled as he thought for a moment. A fox-like grin appeared on his face as he said two words. Raijuu Arc. Chapter 2, A Storm is Brewing. Naruto and Jiraiya walked through the town's streets towards the harbor platforms in order to rent a boat that will take them to the homeland that is Yuzushiogaku no Sato. Naruto glanced upwards and scowled, covering his eyes with his hand, as he aimed to block out the harsh rays of the sun. It was unnaturally hot today, and it showed from the fact that many of the town's populace were fanning themselves or guzzling down water in the way Naruto would chow down on his beloved ramen. Oh, Ero-sennin, why are we walking here through the town? Why can't we just run on the rooftops to get to the harbor? Naruto asked. Jiraiya turned back to glance at his disciple. Naruto, it is best to keep a low profile here, seeing as how we are in an area of the elemental nations where shinobi tend to be rather scarce. I don't want to take any chances with the fact that even though the Akatsuki have paused in their activities, they may still be wanting to keep an eye on you. Us performing shinobi acts might ruin our chances to avoid being detected by the Akatsuki, as well as making a big spectacle of ourselves should we do so, and if they are watching us, they may want to attack and you are not strong enough to take them on yet, the white-haired sage explained. Naruto frowned. Jiraiya's reason and logic did make sense despite wanting to refute it. There was no telling what the Akatsuki were planning, even with Jiraiya's spy network doing what it could to keep an eye on the organization. Naruto's hands clenched into fists as the images of Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame appeared in his mind. It was the image from when the two Nuke-nin had first arrived to take him for the Kyuubi that resided within him. He was practically useless when Kisame had the Samehada take his chakra, and there was nothing he could have done to stop the two powerful shinobi if Jiraiya hadn't shown up when he did to stop them. I have to become stronger, and I will, Naruto thought, determination flashing across his face. However, the determination was soon replaced with annoyance when the sunlight assaulted his eyes. Ugh, wait, Kamina said the Raijuu arc could allow me to manipulate elements of the storm. Maybe I could make a cloud cover or something to block out the sun. Naruto smirked as he aimed to draw on the abilities of the Thunder Beast, but suddenly he felt a tugging at the back of his mind. He blinked, and he found himself within his sewer-like mindscape standing before the dragon-like beast and the crimson-furred kitsune. Huh! What the, Kamina, Kurama? I would advise against using the Raijuu arc, Naruto. Kamina spoke, his form letting loose random sparks of lightning as he did so. The red-eyed kitsune snarled, his tails swishing back and forth in a wild manner. I would also advise you not to use my real name without my consent to do so. I will not have some idiotic monkey such as you utter it from your lips so casually. My name is only worthy for 3 people, and they are long gone, and none have ever earned my respect to say it, and you, Uzumaki, have not done so. You are to refer to me by my title and my title alone. I am Kyuubi no Yoko, the most powerful of all the Bijuu, and I suggest you refer to me as such unless otherwise before I flood your system with my chakra and burn your entire chakra network. Naruto and Kamina stared in shock at the malevolent tone the Bijuu had used in response to Naruto's usage of his actual name. True, the beast was a being of pure malice and contempt with a mixture of pride, but the anger that came about by Kurama seemed different to the one that Naruto usually felt when meeting with the demonic kitsune. You seem rather against my using your real name, though what is the point of me knowing your true name if I can't even use it? Naruto asked. The 9-tailed fox snarled at its Jinchuriki before slamming its claws against the bars of the cage that held it back. If it weren't for this damned seal, I would have your head, Uzumaki. The point is that my name remains out of your mouth unless you have earned my respect, which you have not, Kurama roared. Naruto stared into the crimson iris of his Bijuu. The blonde then broke out into his trademark foxy grin. Well then, Kyuubi, guess I'll have to work hard to earn your respect then. The response caught both Thunder Beast and Bijuu off guard. What? Kurama exclaimed. Naruto chuckled. I did just say that if I can't say your name, then what is the point in me knowing it? Now I know your reason. I can see how much your name means to you. After all, a name pronounced is the recognition of the individual to whom it belongs to, and your name represents who you are. You seem very proud of your name, so I will comply with your request and earn your respect, Naruto said. Kurama and Kamina looked at each other, and then back at the blonde. Kurama growled, but an amused smirk found its way to his face. I will enjoy watching you struggle to achieve that, Gaki. Kurama then turned and headed back into the darkness of his cage to take a nap. As the fox did so, the Raijuu turned to look at Naruto. You really are an interesting individual, Naruto Uzumaki. Maybe so, but I enjoy being challenged. I've gone up against impossible odds before, like when I learned the Rasengan, and I've come out on top all the same. Besides, if I do this I can go down as one of the first Jinchuriki to befriend their Bijuu. Naruto grinned, earning a chuckle from the Thunder Beast. Kamina nodded before Naruto spoke once more. So why did you say you were against me using the Raijuu arc just to make a simple cloud cover? Naruto asked. Kamina cleared his throat before speaking. Yes, well, you see, Naruto, you have only just received my powers yesterday. The Raijuu arc, as you have dubbed it, combines the powers of wind and lightning to give you the ability to command the elements of the storm. Kamina explained, raising his hand, conducting plasma energy around his hand before it turned into sparks of lightning. While you may be able to draw upon them and use them, you are inexperienced. Lightning and wind are 2 of the most unpredictable elements in not just nature, but in chakra as well. These elements combined can make an even unique, but dangerous result. If you choose to perform the Raijuu arc, you may end up potentially hurting yourself or the people around you, like the civilian populace you and your sensei are currently surrounded by. I'm suggesting you withhold such thoughts and give yourself time to train in the Raijuu arc when you arrive at this Yuzu no Kuni that your sensei spoke of. Oh, he said intelligently. Well, I see where you are going with this, okay. I won't use the Raijuu arc for now at least. I'd better get before Ero-sennin realizes I might not be paying attention to him. Naruto then vanished from his mindscape, leaving the two powerful beings that resided within it to their own devices. Hee, that boy is going to be something else. Well, maybe if you told him that his chakra's elemental affinity is for wind, he may have reason to believe he does not have to work as hard in order to use that Kekai Genkai you gave him, Kurama said. Come now, Kurama, the boy has other things to learn. I have no doubt in mind that the boy will surprise us with growth neither of us will expect. Besides, I thought you wanted to sleep. Zzz, Kurama snored, causing the Raijuu to release an irritated sigh. Smart-ass Bijou. Naruto blinked and then quickly twisted his body to avoid colliding with a woman who was walking past him. However, as he turned back in front he found his walking from colliding with that of his sensei's. Ero-sennin, why'd you stop walking? We've reached the harbor, Gaki, Jiraiya said with a large grin on his face. Come on, I've just got to talk with the manager, and we'll be on our way. Naruto nodded and sat down atop a small crate he had spied and looked up at the clear blue sky, the sun now blocked out by a fortunate little cloud earning a smirk from Naruto as his eyes were temporarily free from being seared by the harsh golden rays. Ero-sennin better teach me some good stuff and not try to peep on any women that are on Yuzu. If he does, I don't give a damn, Sannin or not, I'm kicking him where the sun doesn't shine. Naruto muttered. He looked up to see Jiraiya talking with a rather lanky-looking man who had a stern look on his face, most likely the boat manager. After watching the two men converse, Jiraiya pulled out his Ica Paradise Volume 8 and handed it to the man. A pleasure doing business with you, Jiraiya-sama, the man yelled out. Naruto's eyes narrowed. So much for keeping a low profile so the Akatsuki won't find us, he thought. Jiraiya sauntered over his disciple before pulling the teen to his feet. Come on, I got the boat for free because the guy loved my novels. You mean the disgusting smut you write? Guess there is some good that can come from those things. Naruto laughed. Jiraiya slapped his student upside the head, but the blonde continued to express his amusement. After getting on the boat, Jiraiya made a Kage Bunshin to row the aquatic vehicle across the clear waters. So Ero-sennin, are you going to teach me anything cool? Naruto asked with an excited look on his face. Jiraiya tapped his chin as he observed his student. Well, I don't think I can give you any taijutsu training until I can find a suitable style for you, so I guess I will work on your physical capabilities a bit. After that I will help you with your chakra control. When we're through with that, I'm going to teach you how to perform Fuinjutsu. Naruto blinked at the elder man. Fuinjutsu? He asked. Jiraiya nodded. Yeah, the place where we're going, Yuzu no Kuni, was famous for having a great talent in the art of Fuinjutsu. It's one of the same styles of jutsu that was used by the Yondaime, and it was through similar teachings that I had taught to him that allowed him to devise Hiraishin. Not only that, but the sealing array that holds the kyubi within you, Jiraiya said, pointing at Naruto's stomach. Naruto's eyes widened. Like the Yondaime? He whispered. A style of jutsu that his idol had used, he was going to learn that? A big grin broke across his face, threatening to break it. That's amazing. Damn right it's amazing. Fuinjutsu is also what I had used to seal the flames Itachi had created when he escaped with his partner. Naruto remembered with a nod. Jiraiya had pulled out a scroll, scribbled down a seal at a rapid pace, and suddenly sealed away the black flames that the elder brother of Sasuke had used to escape his current sensei's jutsu. So I'm going to learn things like that? Yes, however the sealing arts require a lot of theoretical work, so you'll have to use your head a lot. I know you're the kind of person for practical work seeing as how you're a kinesthetic learner, but I have a feeling that you will have a rather unforeseen talent in the sealing arts, Jiraiya said with a proud grin. That and because you have the blood of an Uzumaki and a Namikaze in you. You will no doubt be a force to be reckoned with if you get the hang of Fuinjutsu, Naruto, just like your parents. He added in afterthought. I see. Anything else you have in mind? He asked. Yes, actually. I will teach you to play some strategy games to sharpen your mind. Hanafuda, Go, and Shogi are prime examples of such games. It will help you to make strategies and rely on tactical warfare when in battle. Jiraiya gave the genin a smirk as he narrowed his eyes. Naruto, you often rush into the fight and end up making up a plan on the fly, but this only occurs when you are in the middle of the fight. I realize that you are a great shinobi due to this amazing gift to come up with such amazing strategies on the fly, but if you are able to think ahead of such strategies, you will fight, and you will have a greater chance of success in the long run. When you return to Konoha, you will be returning to join up with the team by your side instead of just going with me or solo. That means thinking ahead to reduce the risk of losses on a mission. The blonde Jinchuriki remained silent as he looked up at the clouds. He smirked as he felt relaxed upon looking at the skies. So this is why Shikamaru always likes to watch the clouds. The blonde mused. After a half an hour had passed, Jiraiya stopped his Kage Bunshin from rowing and the clone dispersed in a puff of smoke. Naruto's eyes shot open, having fallen asleep during that time, and stood up. Are we here? He asked. Jiraiya nodded and moved aside so Naruto could see the large island of Yuzu no Kuni. Living true to its name, the island was surrounded by a large mass of whirlpools. Naruto's eyes narrowed, trying to see up further ahead, trying to see if he could get a glimpse of the island's characteristics other than the scattered forests. He then turned upon hearing Jiraiya step atop the water. Why are we walking? He asked, picking up his backpack and followed his sensei's lead. The island of Yuzu, despite having been wiped out long ago, still has some protection seals surrounding it. There's a reason why people rarely come to visit or even venture towards this place, Jiraiya said as he took out a shuriken from his weapons pouch. He flung the star-shaped weapon and as it crossed over into the territory of whirlpools, Naruto's eyes widened as he saw the whirlpools suddenly react to the shuriken's presence. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw the whirlpools suddenly spring to life, rising up like serpents before one of them engulfed the shuriken and dragged it down into the depths of the ocean. The whirlpools then returned to normal and the two shinobi were now staring at the waters. What was that, Ero-sennin? That was a protection seal devised by the inhabitants of this island when they were still alive. This was probably one of the outer perimeter seals to try and dismantle any enemies trying to invade on water. Jiraiya walked left as he moved away from the hidden weaponized watery terrain. It is still a mystery as to how the feared people of this island had their defenses breached, and thus resulting in their people being slaughtered. It was one of the worst genocides in the history of the shinobi world, Jiraiya informed his student. However, I do know a way around it. Follow me. Naruto followed Jiraiya and they walked along the water's surface before coming to a clear path, void of whirlpools. Jiraiya glanced back at Naruto. Yuzushiogakuer, former homeland of the legendary Uzumaki clan. Naruto, the island only recognizes those with Uzumaki blood and so you will have to venture through the path first before I can follow. Once it recognizes you, the defenses will be dropped until you reach the island's coastline. Jiraiya thought. He never really liked using people, but it was the only way he could get to the island without being killed by the island itself. Plus, he couldn't tell Naruto of his heritage. Not yet. I made a promise to your parents that I would protect you, Naruto. If I didn't keep your heritage a secret, I'd be failing that promise. Jiraiya then ushered Naruto through first, causing the blonde boy to wonder why he had to go through first. A real ninja fears nothing, now go. I follow you after, I just need to make sure I have the supplies I need to teach you the Fuinjutsu. Jiraiya half-lied as he pulled out a small scroll. Naruto stared hard at Jiraiya as the white-haired porn writer was going through his backpack in a very serious manner. Naruto shrugged before venturing through the clear path. Unknown to him, the water beneath suddenly had a large seal array on it, and a chakra pulse was released. Naruto felt the pulse and looked around before noticing nothing, though he kept his guard up even more than he had done before. The seal array suddenly began to twist and swirl. A ring of seals appeared, forming concentric circles. The center of the seal suddenly morphed in shape, and where there was nothing, there now lay the kanji for Uzumaki. Jiraiya spotted that and smirked. The defenses had been let down as the island had recognized the Uzumaki blood within the blonde. Thank you, Kushina-chan. He thought to the heavens, clasping his hands in prayer. He then followed after his blonde pupil, and the two continued to walk until they reached the coastline of the island. As soon as the two set foot on the island, Naruto immediately surveyed his surroundings. The stone beach made a crunch-like sound as he walked along it, Jiraiya walking alongside him. Numerous trees formed the forests he had spied earlier on. However, what took a large majority of the island was the large amount of rubble that filled the island. Dilapidated buildings, towers, and other forms of infrastructure that once stood tall were now cracked, broken, and some of which had been reduced to piles of clay and stone. Naruto observed the area and felt a tug at his heartstrings. What happened here? Naruto thought before he heard a loud snap beneath his foot. He looked down and his eyes widened. A human skeletal forearm, now broken due to the pressure Naruto's foot had exerted on it, lay beneath him. The body that the arm was attached to lay beneath a large slab of rock, and Naruto saw traces of red hair poking out from beneath the slab. He looked at the forearm once more. It was small. A child? Naruto guessed. He then turned to Jiraiya, who had placed a hand on his shoulder. Come on, Naruto, we can't bother with the dead, he said. Naruto gulped before looking at his sensei. I know you said that the people of Yuzu no Kuni were killed off in a genocide, but this is unlike anything I would have imagined. Naruto walked away from the broken form of the child before following Jiraiya through the broken land of Yuzu. After a few minutes, Jiraiya and Naruto had reached a suitable area of forest that lay past the ruins of Yuzu. It was spacious and there was a river running through the area. Naruto followed the river's opposite flow path and came to stare in awe at the majestic mountains that were almost completely obscured by the tall trees. Naruto channeled chakra into his feet and climbed up a tree as Jiraiya was setting up camp. Naruto hopped atop one of the higher branches and continued to stare at the landscape. The forestry made extreme meanders around the areas where there used to be civilization, now a bunch of rubble. The river seemed to cut the island in half, its path starting in the distance where several mountains lay, their peaks seeming to scrape the sky. He then followed the river's actual flow pattern and saw it had come to a stop at a large lake near the upper sections of the land of Yuzu no Kuni, where there lay the largest amount of destroyed infrastructure out of the entire island. Despite Yuzu no Kuni appearing small, it was apparently far larger than one would have anticipated. Naruto continued to stare at the landscape before dropping down from the tree. He landed on his feet, bending his knees to prevent the shock from hurting his legs. As he stood back up, he looked to see Jiraiya had finished setting up the small campsite. Their two packs lay against a pair of tall trees while a large pile of firewood lay next to their bags, and Jiraiya was already making a small pile, circling it with stones, to prepare for the night when it came. All right, Naruto. Now that I've made the camp, it's time to start your training, he said in a serious tone. Naruto nodded as the training began. It was a rather uneventful set of training, though, seeing as how Jiraiya had him practice his chakra control by running up and down trees as well as walking along the flowing waters of the river. He had walked atop the frickin' ocean to reach the island, so the river was child's play to the blonde Jinchuriki. After a few hours of practicing chakra control, Jiraiya made Naruto do a variety of exercises to increase his body's capabilities. 400 push-ups, 200 sit-ups, 350 handstand push-ups, and then a few punch and kick drills against the thick trunks of the nearby trees, which were also placed at a number within the hundreds margin. Alright, Naruto, now that the warm-ups are done, I'm going to get a feel for what you would need improvement in. Your tests will be in terms of strength, speed, agility, endurance, flexibility, and stealth, Jiraiya said before getting into a basic stance. He tucked his arms in so that his hands were against his waist, and his legs were spread a bit past shoulder width and bent at 90-degree angles. Alright, now then, punch me and kick me, Jiraiya said. Naruto shook his head. What? He asked. I said hit me. Give it everything you've got. I know you're 14 in genin level, so your strength may not be all that great, but I can take it. I've been hit with Gamabunta's hand and pummeled by Tsunade. Nothing will outclass that woman's hits, so give it your best, Naruto. The blonde hesitantly held up his fists, wondering if it was alright to punch his sensei, but he got over it. He gave a battle cry and charged forth before punching with all he had. He reared back his left fist and nailed Jiraiya in the center of his chest. Jiraiya released a small grunt as he was sent leaning back a few centimeters, but nothing more. The white-haired man returned to his original position, looked down at the shorter blonde and nodded. Now go with a straight kick. Naruto did as he was told, and he achieved the same result. Jiraiya had not even shifted from his spot, either that or the shift was minuscule, one wouldn't be able to tell. The Gamma Sennin was put into a position where he was leaning backwards, but his feet had remained anchored to the spot. Naruto had repeated the action in order to make sure he wasn't staying on the ground due to sticking to it with chakra, but found his claim to be false. Okay, your strength is something we need to work on. I'll whip up some weights and gravity seals for you soon enough, but right now it's time for your other test. Naruto frowned as he held up his fist. He had put everything he had into his punch. He had kicked so hard during the Chunin exams that he was able to send Kiba airborne. He was also able to do so with a punch like he did with Neji when he used the tunneling tactic to nail him in the chin and earn himself the win. He was able to appear in time to save Sasuke from being attacked by a half-transformed Gaara during the war against Suna and Oto by kicking him in the jaw, sending the red-headed boy soaring for a few seconds. However, Jiraiya hadn't even moved from his spot. Is the gap between me and Ero Sennin really that big? He thought. He then looked up upon hearing Jiraiya take out a few kunai and shuriken. Now I want you to dodge these. I will throw them at only half my actual speed of throwing, so that might help you a bit, so be prepared. Naruto's legs tensed as Jiraiya held up the weapons and with a flick of his wrist sent them soaring towards his pupil. Naruto's eyes widened, but his lightweight body and his lean frame was what gave him the edge. The 4 shuriken that were sent towards him were avoided. One was ducked under, the second was avoided by Naruto twisting at the waist before he leaned backwards so his upper body was parallel to the ground to avoid the third. To avoid the fourth he had went with the momentum of his leaning backwards and went into a handstand and bent his arms, allowing him to push off and avoid the 4th shuriken. However, he quickly had to rotate his body to avoid the kunai that was aimed for his head. Well, watch it! He yelled as he performed another aerial twist, spreading his legs apart in a straight split to avoid the second kunai that made him gulp and pale with fear as he felt the blade just barely touched his genitalia. He then reached out and snatched Jiraiya's 3rd kunai out of the air and threw it back at the 4th. A resounding clang was heard upon impact. Jiraiya nodded with satisfaction. How did I do? I'll give you your overall score when I finish with them all, he informed the blonde. He then held up a few rocks in his hand. There were about 10 of them. I'll test your pain tolerance in your endurance test. I'm going to pelt these rocks at you, and when you think you can't handle any more hits, just say when. Jiraiya instructed. The disciple of the Gamma Sennin nodded before slipping into the stance Jiraiya had made when he was doing his strength test earlier. He then tensed his muscles and nodded to the black-eyed man. Jiraiya hurled the rocks. 1, 2, 3. They struck Naruto with amazing force, but Naruto refused to go down. His determination and pride refused to let him do so. 4, 5, 6, 7. The 4 stones hit him in the chest simultaneously, and Naruto gritted his teeth, but suddenly released a heavy oof as the 8th and 9th struck him in the solar plexus hard enough to knock the wind out of his lungs. He coughed as he aimed to retrieve the oxygen and looked up at his teacher. When? He wheezed out, earning a chuckle from Jiraiya, as well as from his 2 tenants. Now for your final test, Stealth. I've heard of your pranks, Gaki, and I gotta say I'm impressed from what I've heard. At the age of 6 you were able to sneak into the Hyuga compound and hit them with glitter cannons and rainbow paint, able to make the Naras look like giant chickens with the classic glue and feathers with a red rubber glove atop the head and a yellow paper cone for a beak. Venturing to the academy, which is guarded by a few high-level chunin, and stick all the chairs up against the ceiling by nailing them down, or up I should say. At age 7, you broke into the Uchiha compound and face-painted all of them in their sleeps so that they had mustaches, monocles and whatnot on their faces, as well as plastering a clown face onto Uchiha Fugaku's face. Jiraiya and Naruto laughed as the white-haired man listed all of Naruto's most notable accomplishments as a master prankster before stopping at the final one. And the coup de resistance, at the age of 12, 2 years ago, on the day before you became a genin. Oh boy, I really laughed when I heard about this one. You were wearing that. He pointed at Naruto's jumpsuit, horrid orange piece of shit you call a jumpsuit, in fucking broad daylight, and you painted the fucking Hokage monument. Naruto blushed in embarrassment before registering what he said. What's wrong with orange? He growled out, huffing in mock anger at his sensei. Jiraiya chuckled before ruffling Naruto's hair. This thing has done me wonders and I still haven't gotten caught. Well then, if you want to prove me wrong about the orange piece of shit, then hide. I'll give you 10 seconds to hide from me and then I'm going to see how long it will take me to find you. However, I'm going to put a limit as to how far away you can hide. About a 10-meter radius should be suitable and… Jiraiya smirked evilly, causing Naruto to shudder in his mind. I'm going to make this a game. If you exceed that radius or if I am able to find you within 1 hour, I will teach you a fuinjutsu technique that the Yondaime knew. Naruto grinned and bounced up and down. Really? Let's go. Wait, if you lose, however… Naruto frowned as Jiraiya uttered the L word. You will have to read my Aika Aika Paradise Volume 1. Admit that Aika Aika Paradise is a good novel and that I, the author, am a god among men for writing them. Naruto's eyes widened and his jaw hung loosely. He couldn't, it wouldn't be possible. He couldn't say those things to the perverted man. It just wasn't humanly possible for a boy like Naruto to the blonde shuddered compliment the pervert on his literary works, but he weighed his options. On the plus side, he could learn a cool jutsu. On the cons end of the scale, he would have to swallow his pride and compliment the pervert for his perverted deeds. Jutsu, or read a piece of smut. He muttered this to himself before sighing and complied with the bet. Jiraiya grinned wider at that. Okay then. Ready? He asked. Naruto grinned like the bijou within him. Stealth was his element. There was no way he'd pass up the chance to hide from a member of the Sannin. You know it, Ero Sennin! Naruto exclaimed, jumping to release some excess excitement. Jiraiya held up 10 fingers as he told Naruto to go. However, as soon as Jiraiya blinked, he realized he made a very grave mistake. The boy had disappeared within that split second and Jiraiya's face paled slightly as he tried to feel for the blonde's chakra. Impossible. He's able to suppress that large chakra supply of his? Just what the hell is this gaki? He thought as he began his search for the blonde. 1 hour later. Jiraiya scowled as Naruto was riding atop the older man's shoulders on their way back to the campsite. Ero Sennin lost. I'm going to get a cool fuinjutsu too, Databeo. He laughed. Jiraiya's eye twitched. I can't believe it. I'm a seasoned ninja, a Kage-level ninja and a member of the Sannin, and yet I was unable to find a dumbass of a 14-year-old brat still getting his ears wet as a shinobi. Jiraiya muttered. I resent that comment about being a dumbass, Ero Sennin. Naruto deadpanned. Now I see why those Umbu have good reasons as to why they were unable to catch you. Jiraiya said as he dropped down with Naruto and the blonde was roughly dropped down on the ground as he had fallen off of the older man's shoulders. Itai. Ero Sennin, that hurt, Naruto said as he rubbed his hurting cranium. The two males then looked up at the sky and noticed that it was almost sundown if the sky's color was any indication. No longer was it blue, but reds, yellows and shades of magenta were beginning to bleed into the expanse of blue. Jiraiya then walked over to the sizable pile of firewood and threw in a few sticks within the already prepared set he had made prior to Naruto's tests. He then set it aflame with a small katan jutsu. So how did I do, Ero Sennin? You said you'd give me my overall results when we were finished, he said. Jiraiya nodded as he sat down on the grass next to Naruto. Now Naruto, you are good shinobi, but it appears that whoever was your Jounin sensei didn't do a very good job since you appeared to be self-taught. Kakashi was your sensei, right? He asked. Naruto frowned and nodded. All he taught me was tree climbing. There were a few team-building exercises and he made us do a few tactical training drills, but there was nothing he taught me and Sakura-chan individually. Everything was given to the team. I know he needed to train him with the Sharingan, but he got taijutsu training, he got speed enhancement training, Chidori. Naruto held his hand up to his chest where the Uchiha had stabbed him in the chest at the Valley of the End. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed. He would have to have a word with the silver-haired scarecrow when the trip was over. Hey Gaki, listen, the Uchiha Gaki may have gotten all that shit, but you're training with me now. You're going to learn some epic stuff that's going to make the Uchiha look like he was still a newborn. And plus, Rasengan trumps the Chidori any day. He smirked. Naruto chuckled. Arigato, Ero-sennin. I needed to hear that. Jiraiya ruffled the blonde's hair. Sure thing, Gaki. Well, moving along, the results of your tests. I will be putting you on a scale from Genin to Jounin since your abilities do not exceed that of an Umbu or Kage. Well, actually, stealth and chakra supply are in those levels, but other than those two. Naruto nodded. Alright, your strength. Your strength, I would place you at low Chunin level. You're a rather strong boy, Naruto, even for a kid of your age and the lifestyle you had and given your diet. However, when Sarutobi-sensei was still alive, he told me you had a ramen-based diet with only milk and a few vegetables to add variety to your diet. So to build up your strength, you will be given a better diet. Protein, carbohydrates, vitamins and minerals, for example. Naruto was about to yell out against being denied his beloved ramen, but was silenced by Jiraiya's hard stare. Naruto, you can't keep having ramen all the time. It's the reason why you're shorter than everyone else in your age group. No doubt that by the time this is over with, you'll be at least up to my cheek in terms of height, and I'm past 6 feet tall. Fine. Naruto huffed, but can I at least have it sometimes? 3 times a week on days of your choosing, but it will only be as a snack. Nothing more. 1 ramen on every one of those 3 days. Now then, also to increase your strength, like I told you before, I'm going to be giving you some weights inscribed with gravity seals. These will allow you to increase the weight of the weights that I will give you when you get used to them, so that way your body will always be working to adjust to become stronger to handle the new weights. Naruto nodded in understanding. Your speed is rather good. A high Chunin level of speed, but I'm guessing that from your recent battles like the one with the Hyuga during the Chunin exams, your speed is much better when you're under the influence of adrenaline. You saw my fight? Naruto asked. Jiraiya gave Naruto a soft smile, noting the hunger for acknowledgement in them, and nodded. You performed rather well and the tunnel tactic was rather good, but the chess and shogi lessons will help increase your tactical mindset. Kyuubi's chakra saved your ass though, so even though I will be teaching you how to further your control of the fox's chakra, I will be teaching you to handle yourself without it. I don't want you to be too reliant on Kyuubi. Okay, Ero-sennin, Naruto said, plus I have Raijuu arc, but I don't want to be too reliant on that either. Ero-sennin has a point with that. I concur with the boys, sensei. You can't be too reliant on the powers that are given to you. Kamina's voice entered Naruto's mind. I deny that. The more the Gaki uses my chakra, the weaker the seal will get. I want my freedom. Kurama rammed his body against the bars of his cage to emphasize his want for freedom. Naruto silenced the 2 beasts so that he wouldn't hear the sound of rattling cage bars continuously. Your agility and flexibility are great. Jounin level for sure, as you dodged my weapons like it was no one's business. Nice touch with the snatching the 3rd one out of the air and hitting the last one. Naruto swelled with pride at being praised. Your endurance, on the other hand, you were down after 9 hits. Enemies are going to hit much harder than my rocks, and I wasn't even throwing them as hard as I could. The Kyuubi will be there to heal your wounds, yes, but that doesn't mean that it will heal them as fast as it can for all of your wounds. What's that flesh bag talking about? My ability to heal the kid's wounds makes it seem as if the boy is practically immortal. That and his heritage as well, Kamina added. What's this about my heritage? Naruto asked. Though silence was all he was met with. He scowled before focusing back on Jiraiya. Your stealth is superb, as I told you. High Umbu level for sure, and it can become even greater if you keep training in it. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you shouldn't keep practicing it. I learned that the hard way when I found out I was good at peeping, but then I stopped after a few days to write the volume 3 for Ika Ika Paradise. Damn, if only I hadn't sneezed. Naruto's sweat dropped. Is that really the comparison he wants to use? Naruto thought. He sneezed? Kamina laughed within Naruto's mind, Kyuubi snickering as well. But I have to hand it to the ninjen, peeping on women is not such an easy task sometimes. How would you know, Kyuubi? Pfft. Listen, Gaki, when you're as old as me you tend to do things that you're not proud of to pass the time, but it was worth it in the end. Such nice figures those women had. Boobies! Kamina yelled out with glee as Kurama shared the images of what happened during the early days of his creation. Naruto's eyes twitched. Great, now I have 3 perverts to deal with, he thought. The Gaki's in denial, Kurama said. It's sad really, Kamina added, shaking his head. Naruto's eye twitched even more before he completely severed the link, not even allowing a single piece of the connection to be left until he wanted to contact the Raijuu and Bijuu again. Baka Kitsune, Baka Raijuu, Baka Erosenin. Naruto thought as he glanced back at his sensei who was now crying, beating the ground with his fist and wailing about not being able to see the glorious parts of the female anatomy. Oh, the things I could have seen, he muttered. Naruto rolled his eyes at the white-haired Sannin before getting up. Erosenin, I'm going for a walk, okay? Jiraiya froze slightly before looking at the blonde. Don't come back too late, you need to get up early for training tomorrow. Naruto nodded with a casual wave of his hand. Yeah, I'll be back. Don't worry, I'll be fine to bail. He then headed off into the deep, dark woods. Once he had found that he had traveled a suitable distance, Naruto activated his link to Kamina the Raijuu. Kamina, I'm ready, he thought. The Thunder Beast nodded. Excellent. It is now time to begin your training in Raijuu arc. Your training in the kata for your taijutsu styles will occur after you manage to draw upon your Raijuu powers kit, Kurama added. Naruto nodded and cracked his neck and knuckles. Ikuzo! Naruto shot up from his slumber and found himself cold, wet and shivering. Nanny? He exclaimed, hugging his body for warmth. He then turned in the direction that the water had seemed to have come from and he looked to see Jiraiya standing with an empty bucket and a small smirk of satisfaction on his face. Yeru SSS Senin, why you SSSSS suck? He yelled. Jiraiya chuckled as he pulled Naruto out of his sleeping bag so it could dry out along with its user. Ohio gozaimasu, Naruto, Jiraiya said as he tossed the towel at Naruto. The towel was caught and used to the best of its ability to dry the orange shinobi. The blonde was groaning silently as he felt the pain from last night's Raijuu arc training come back to him. Kamina had run him into the ground with drills on how to properly attune his chakra to that of the storm in order for him to even get a grasp of his Raijuu chakra. However, he had failed in his many attempts to grasp the Thunder Beast's energy. But the Raijuu let him off, saying that this was the one of the few times a human was given the powers of a mythological creature such as himself, so he wasn't expecting Naruto to learn the ability overnight. Kurama, on the other hand, had different views for Naruto. He sent mental picture after mental picture into Naruto's brain depicting the stances for the kata for his first taijutsu style. Hiryuken, the Flying Dragon's Fist. His body was sore from the constant shifts in posture, and he had literally collapsed into his sleeping bag when he returned to the campsite, finding Jiraiya sleeping. Who knew the two creatures could be such slave drivers? We can hear you, Gaki! Kurama roared. Naruto ignored the kitsune as he continued to dry himself. Once Naruto was warm and dry, Jiraiya then had Naruto go through a set of physical training exercises, now with the gravity seal weights that Jiraiya had supplied for Naruto from within a scroll via pocket dimension. Once the physical training was over, Jiraiya continued to have Naruto practice his chakra control for an hour before giving him the task of trying to master the Rasengan. But didn't I already do that, Erosenin? You can make a perfect Rasengan, Gaki. However, I want you to learn it until you can do it with only one hand. You may not get the time to make a Kage Bunshin to help with making the Rasengan, so I will be having you work on this so that you can become a true master of the Rasengan. Naruto nodded and began trying to master the Rasengan. Many times it had blown back in his face, the chakra backlash causing a few cuts to form on his body only for Kurama to heal the damage. After 2 hours of watching his pupils struggle to form a stable spheroid of chakra, Jiraiya stopped him and had the blonde sit with him on the grass. Naruto then saw Jiraiya pull out 2 wooden objects from his scroll's pocket dimension seal. "What are those?" Naruto asked. Jiraiya rested them on the ground before smirking. "This is your tactical warfare training. This one is a chessboard." He pointed to the object decorated with a checkerboard pattern, "and this other one is a shogi board. I'm going to show you how to play them, and then we will begin playing." Naruto groaned as he explained the rules of each game. It was long and boring to listen to, but Naruto found himself to be rather interested in the games when they began playing. He liked chess better due to it being less complex, but he still found it required a lot of patience and strategy in deciding what to move and where to move it. Hours had passed, and by the time it was noon, Jiraiya found that Naruto had finally gained a good grasp on both games, as the blonde seemed to be learning as he was going along. Also, Jiraiya found that Naruto's rather random and haphazard moves were actually part of a strategy in their own right, which resulted in throwing off the opponent and allowing Naruto to go in for a kill. But he still needs to develop better tactics rather than just going in there without any plan whatsoever. The white-haired man thought as he packed away the games. "Now that you've gotten a grasp of the games, tomorrow we can start playing more seriously. If you want to review anything, here's a rule book for both games." Naruto was handed a small dark brown book that read, "Board Games for Dummies" on the cover. "Really? For dummies?" he deadpanned. Jiraiya shrugged. "It was the only one in the store when I went to learn how to play the games myself. Anyway, now that your tactical training is out of the way, I shall begin your training in Fuinjutsu." Jiraiya took out a few scrolls and rested them in front of Naruto. "Fuinjutsu requires a great deal of theoretical knowledge, so for the rest of the day, I will be making sure you read your scrolls. You will have breaks to eat in between, but that is all," Jiraiya said. "But Ero-sennin, how will I finish all these scrolls in time? There's more than 10 of these things, and I doubt that any of them are short and concise." Naruto whined. Jiraiya chuckled. "So the master of Kage Bunshin no Jutsu doesn't even know what the jutsu was originally for? Gaki, you really are something else." He laughed. Naruto blinked in confusion, scratching his head. He then wondered for a while. "Kage Bunshin, what does that have to do with anything?" he thought. He tapped his finger against his knee as he sat cross-legged on the ground, adjusting positions as he tried to think as to what the older man had implied by saying that the Kage Bunshin had another purpose. "Well, I normally use my clones to overwhelm the opponent, to be able to use certain combos on them, but that's it. Kyuso, if only I was able to remember like when my Kage Bunshins dispelled and I would gain the..." Naruto blinked before slapping himself in the face. "Baka!" He reprimanded himself for not thinking of it sooner. "Got it?" his sensei asked. The blonde Raijuu arc user nodded before forming the clones and began reading. By the end of it all, Naruto had fallen unconscious from memory overload when he dispelled his clones all at once when they had finished their readings. Jiraiya sighed. "I should have mentioned that he could get memory overload. A normal person would die, but you Jinchuriki really are lucky to have your Bijuu give you a healing factor that allows you to survive any kind of trauma." An hour later, Naruto woke up and yawned. He sniffed the air and found himself greeted by the scent of freshly cooked fish. "Good, you're up. Eat and we can start your Fuinjutsu training," Jiraiya said. Naruto nodded as he and the perverted hermit dug into the fish. A few non-poisonous berries were also gathered to build up Naruto's immunity despite the Kyuubi being there to prevent such ailments from occurring in the first place. After eating, Jiraiya then began to explain the practical use of Fuinjutsu. Fuinjutsu is described as the use of seals which are written in the form of elaborate kanji in order to create the seal formula, which can be made either through the use of hand signs, but most commonly through the use of a scroll, brush and ink. The ink for Fuinjutsu is made with the constituents of regular ink, but there must be a slight amount of blood mixed in with the ink in order for the Fuinjutsu to work, since blood was a part of the body and thus, the blood possessed chakra within the cells. The blood was also a good conduit between the seal and the user's chakra in order to the Fuinjutsu formula to become active. Fuinjutsu had a large number of seals used in its methodology, but the main type seals used were the open and closed seals, used in space-time fuinjutsu such as when sealing an object into a scroll and then releasing said object from said scroll. The elemental seals, which were used in conjunction to the open and closed seals in order to perform feats such as sealing away an element by having the user's chakra seemingly absorb the element in question before using the open seal to open a pocket dimension to store away the element before the closed seal closes the pocket dimension. Open and closed seals could also be amplified through the use of a matrix seal, which allowed one to increase the size of a pocket dimension. It was found through a large amount of study that a pocket dimension actually had a limit to the amount of objects it could store. The matrix seal was invented in order to split apart the pocket dimension and make it into the shape of a mathematical matrix, a grid shape if you will. This created small pouches within the pocket dimension where items could be stored within each pouch. The amount of pouches made in the pocket dimension was determined by the size of the matrix being used. As a result, number seals were made to vary the amount of space one could make in the pocket dimension. Time and space seals were used to create teleportation seals and were what the Yondaime Hokage had used alongside through some very elaborate fuinjutsu methods and formulas before coming to the final product, which resulted in the formation of his prized jutsu, the Hiraishin no Jutsu. These sorts of seals were also used in the Kuchios no Jutsu. Certain fuinjutsu technique required a sacrifice or payment in some cases in order for the jutsu to work. In some cases it would be chakra, in others it was blood, but in rare cases, the case concerning Naruto's Shiki Fuin, it could come at the cost of a life in order for it to be performed. Erosenin, just how is my Shiki Fuin made? I mean, now that I understand what you're talking about, since I now have my Kage Bunshin's memories, I can now better understand how the seal works. Naruto said. Your seal, the Shiki Fuin, consists of 2 tetragram seals or 4-symbol seal as some would call it. The tetragram seal, as you would have learned from your reading, is used to seal away an object within the human body. The double tetragram seal on your body was created with the intent to seal away larger and more powerful beings, the Kyuubi being the being in question. This double tetragram seal is connected so tightly that it is more durable than the iron armor seal, another type of seal that is currently being used in Kumogakure to seal away the Hachibi. Hachibi? 8 tails? Naruto asked. Jiraiya nodded. Now then, the double tetragram seal, when combined, merges to form the seal that is on your stomach when you activate your chakra. This is known as the 8 trigram seal. But Erosenin, if this seal is so strong, then why is it that the Kyuubi's chakra is able to merge with my own? At least, that's what I was told by the Bakakitsune. The growl of said Bakakitsune was heard in the back of his mind, but he ignored it. The reason is because the Yondaime left a space between each of the tetragram seals. This space is what allows the Kyuubi's chakra to harmlessly leave its body and go into your own system, thus increasing your reserves as well as slowly, but surely, taking away the strength of the beast. However, as you have come to notice, the Kyuubi's chakra seems to come out in higher quantities at the points when you are in emotional or physical distress. As a result, due to the large amount of chakra being forced through the seal and the fact that the seal weakens with age, you are thereby weakening the seal even more. Naruto's eyes widened. Is there any way to tighten it back? Can't you use I don't know, a bind seal or something to hold it together? Jiraiya shook his head. There is a way to hold the seal, but Naruto, your seal is the most developed seal that was ever made to hold a bijou. Only the former members of this society in Yuzuno Kuni would be able to create a more powerful seal than the one you have now, but sadly they are all gone. Now then, as to how your seal could be tightened or loosened, it is because there is a key formula to your Shiki Fuin. A key formula? He asked. Jiraiya nodded. It will be able to weaken or strengthen the seal. You could do what you wish to the seal if you possess the key. Since Yondaime's death, I have been holding the key, and you know very well why I will not give you the key formula. Because I'm too young and I wouldn't really understand how it would work until I finish my training? Naruto guessed. Precisely that. You're learning, that's good. Now then, let's make you that ink, shall we? Jiraiya grinned as he unsealed a small bottle of ink from a scroll. After developing Naruto's ink that was specific for his chakra nature and type, he began to learn how to make his seals from the perverted Sannin. Despite his other personas, Naruto was always impressed when Jiraiya took on his serious shinobi persona. It was amazing just to see the attributes that made Jiraiya such a feared and brilliant shinobi. After his few ninjutsu lessons, Naruto left to practice his Hiryu-ken taijutsu style as well as to practice drawing upon his Raijuu arc Kekei Genkai. The schedule continued in a similar manner. Naruto would get up via a bucket of cold water to the face from Jiraiya, do his physical exercises with the heavy weights and gravity seals he always had been wearing since he had put them on, practicing his chakra control and trying to form a stable Rasengan by the end of it, followed by a few rounds of chess and shogi. After that it was Fuinjutsu until the sun came down. Finally, Naruto trained with Kamina and Kurama for a few more hours and then he would get to sleep. Lather, rinse, repeat. Time skip 5 days later. Naruto sighed as he sat atop a piece of the broken infrastructure that was once a part of Uzushiyogakure no Sato, the village hidden in the whirling tides, the capital of Yuzu no Kuni. He had been informed a bit as to what Yuzu no Kuni was about by the white-haired Sannin, and Naruto was always still taken aback when he was told just how they suffered from genocide. After having spent a week on the island, Jiraiya had decided to give Naruto a break for the day. All work and no play made a very dull boy after all. As Naruto stared out at the sea from atop the piece of destroyed building, he marveled at the hidden magnificence of the whirlpools that protected the island. He sighed as he continued to stare out at the open expanse of blue. 1 week. I can't believe it's already been that long. I feel like I just got here. Naruto muttered to himself. Ero-sennin really has been working me into the ground, he added as he looked over himself. His orange jumpsuit jacket had to be discarded in the end as the physical training and the backlash from the Rasengan, plus the fact that he was now making progress with drawing upon the Raijuu arc chakra and thus making wind and lightning shoot forth from his body. The compilation of repercussions sometimes left a slash mark or burn on his jacket, and was what resulted in the discarding of the jacket in the first place. Thus all he had on only his orange pants, his navy blue t-shirt which he wore over the padded vest that was to prevent kunai or shuriken from going into his chest flesh, though he thought that it did a poor job of doing that if being impaled by such weapons had occurred on a regular basis during his time with Team 7. His blue shinobi sandals and the necklace Tsunade gave him. He fingered the piece of jade-colored jewelry before jumping off from the piece of rubble. He adjusted his hitate, which now bore a few small tears on the cloth, before walking off to explore more of Yuzu's ruins. As he continued to walk, he spotted something that caught his eye. It was a piece of red stone that bore a familiar shape. Naruto walked over to it, and found the stone was a bit circular in shape and found other pieces of the rock nearby, though they were slightly scattered away from each other. He took up all the pieces of the rock and began to turn them around in different directions so as to solve this new puzzle. After a few minutes, the blonde Jinchuriki managed to piece together the rock-like puzzle, causing his eyes to widen as he realized what it was he was looking at. It was the shape of the spiral that was found on the back of his clothes, the orange jacket to be more specific, and on the back of Chunin/Jounin vests. He then looked up and stared at the building before him. Despite being rather old and dilapidated and tilting at an extreme angle that would have been sure to make it topple, was still standing, the large piece of it missing, the original resting place of the spiral he had pieced together. He let loose an audible gulp of nervousness before he entered it. The blue-eyed Uzumaki twisted and turned through it, venturing deeper and deeper into the building, descending down the stone steps that were sure to have extended underground given the fact that after 8 flights he still hadn't reached the bottom floor. He then leaped over the railing of the steps, using his better chakra control to skid down the walls before coming to a stop at the bottom floor. He observed the area before holding up his hand. He took a deep breath and drew upon the power of his Raijuu arc, and immediately, lightning coated his hand in a bright blue color. The sparks of blue voltage flew off from his hand, but it generated a suitable amount of light. He then spotted the single corridor that lay before him and ran down it. He continued to run down the lengthy pathway before stopping. Dead end. However, it was what was on the dead end wall that caught his fancy. It was the spiral, the crimson spiral that brought the feeling of familiarity to him every time he saw it. He saw it once more and placed his hand against it. Suddenly a seal array sprung up and Naruto held up his lit hand to observe it. It was a rather complex dimensional seal array with various open, close, time, space, and matrix seals written in the shape of a square that had a circle lying within the square. Then in the center of the circle, 2 more open and close seals lay there with the single kanji for blood lying in between them. It was a space-time seal, meaning that there was a pocket dimension of some sort behind the dead-end wall. The numerous amount of guard seals along with the kanji for blood, which implied a blood seal, was hidden somewhere amongst the array. Naruto placed his hand against the wall before he saw the seals take on a blue glow once he had made contact with it. His eyes narrowed and noticed the glow would vanish upon taking his hand off of it, and then returning when he placed it back on it. He pumped a small amount of chakra into the blood seal, and he saw the square and circle that surrounded the seal array suddenly break down and vanish. His eyes widened before he bit his thumb out of sheer surprise to see if his theory, the one flowing through his mind, was true. The blood flowed from the small wound before Kurama could heal it, and he placed his bleeding thumb against the blood seal. The seal array then released a crimson glow, a glow that was bright enough to meld with his lightning's generated light and make it become a violet color as the colors mixed. Once the seal array stopped glowing, the kanji for Uzumaki then appeared in front of his face with the spiral beneath it. Naruto's eyes widened as he stared at the kanji for his last name. He tentatively reached out to touch it, only to draw his hand back when the wall rippled as if it were liquid. He slowly touched the wall once more, and the wall indeed rippled. He pushed his hand further through the rippling surface, only to see that his hand could now go through the wall. He took a deep breath as he wondered just what awaited him on the other side of the wall. "I've never backed down before. I swore I would never run away from anything, so why start now?" he asked himself. "Because retreating could sometimes kill you?" Kamina spoke. "Because you're a baka," Kurama added. Naruto's eyes narrowed as the smartass that lived in his mind began to speak again. "Yureisai, baka kitsune, baka Raijuu." He thought back to them. "He insulted us. How painful!" The 2 powerful beings released mock sobs of sadness that caused Naruto to sweat drop. He shook his head to rid himself of the voices in his head. He just realized how insane he made himself sound as he made that thought, though. He pushed through, and then he went through the wall and found himself in a large, spacious room filled with numerous, dust-covered scrolls. Most pertained to Fuinjutsu, some were about elemental jutsus, mostly relating to water and earth, but then Naruto spotted one. It was rather large, dusty, and the scroll's paper was yellow-brown, showing that it was kept here for quite a while. It was titled History of Uzushiogakure. Naruto then read it through and realized that the scroll was about the Uzumaki clan, the clan on longevity and a clan of sealing masters. "Uzumaki clan, my clan?" he wondered. He then continued to read on before coming across one piece of information that dated back about 36 years before his birth, and the final entry in the history scroll. It was more or less from a first-person perspective, thus it was probably the author's entry in the scroll. "Uzushiogakure no Sato, our once proud home, is now afflicted by battle. As a result, our country is now a war-torn area due to people fearing us for our skills in Fuinjutsu. Uzushio has taken a precautionary measure due to the circumstances our island has been put under. We have done what we could to send away as many people as we were able to. Some of the boats were destroyed in the process and killed off the passengers, but at least I was able to see that some of them made it through." Naruto swallowed hard, gripping the scroll as he kept reading. "I am going to die dealing with the enemies surrounding the main island, I know that very well, but at least we were able to store all of our most treasured secrets and knowledge down here. Only a man or woman of Uzumaki heritage will be able to break these bindings that lock away the last remnants of Uzumaki heritage. Now then, I guess I'd better write one last historical event before I go off to fight alongside my brethren." Naruto paused as he looked around the room. "The last of Uzumaki heritage, huh?" he thought before continuing to read. But this was what caught him off guard. The piece of information that sparked something within him. What it was, he couldn't describe it, but he knew that the feeling was one that shook him to his core. He read the passage out loud to himself so as to assure himself that what he was reading was in fact real. Circumstances in Yuzushiogakure no Sato's economy due to the potential events of war had resulted in us sending away Uzumaki Kushina, one of the noble daughters who had migrated to Konoha for protection. Uzumaki Kushina, having a special chakras that hold the ability to subdue the Bijuu, became the second Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Yoko as decreed by Senju Uzumaki Midosama, wife of Senju Hashirama, the Shodame Hokage. Naruto dropped the scroll in his hands before looking down at himself, more specifically his stomach. Previous, Jinchuriki. Of the Kyubi. Yuzushiogakure, former land of the Uzumaki clan. Naruto's thoughts raced. Confusion, distress, sadness. These emotions rushed through him before compiling into one single entity. Naruto's head bent low, his bangs shadowing his eyes before his head snapped up, his eyes flashing to a deep crimson, and lightning and wind surrounded his body in small bursts. His chakra flared with his spiking emotions before turning to his mouth twisted into an animalistic snarl as he stormed out of the room, the large scroll tucked under his arm. He had to have a little chat with his sensei. Chapter 3: Rage of the Storm. Anger had boiled into Naruto's mind as he felt the intense rages begin to stir some of Kurama's chakra inside him. The chakra had become an addiction to his anger, in which he had felt the animalistic behavior come into place, the animal part of him coming at him, filling his mind with the intention and sense that the hunt was afoot. If he couldn't get direct answers from his master, he couldn't get any answers from him at all whatsoever. He was going to shred his face and rip his work to bits. He never knew nothing, know a damn thing about his family, his heritage, or if there was anyone alive that was even blood related to him. Seeing now that finding out what his heritage was gave him some aspect of happiness, relief knowing that he wasn't the only Uzumaki. Yet he had come to know that the Sannin had lied to him. He knew who this clan was. The old pervert was around during the Second Shinobi War. He was the master of Yondaime, student of Sandaime. He would have known who the second Jinchuriki of Kurama was. How much was he lied to? How much was hidden from him? Did the Sandaime know? Did Tsunade or Kakashi know? Just how much was lied and hidden from him due to his status? Naruto snarled as he stomped through the rubble of Yuzushiogakure no Sato. His snarl temporarily became a deep frown. My home, he thought. I had a home outside of Konoha, I had family outside of Konoha, and I was kept from it. Naruto thought, tears lining his eyes as he realized he was most likely the last of his kind. Though the scroll in his arms had said that some Uzumaki clan members had managed to escape the genocide, there was no telling if they were truly alive or not. Naruto wiped the tears away before continuing to his destination. He could feel the rage continue to bubble, preparing to form the first tail before it was reverted back as an aura around him. The anger was coming out in plentiful amounts, though he managed to hold it at bay, only for it to transform into pure rage, and the rage kept on. He continued to walk through the ruins, the voices of Kurama and Kamina arguing in his mind before he snapped at them. Both of you, shut the hell up right now! He screamed in his mind before he launched his conscience within his mind as he appearing before them as he stared at Kamina, who was growling at Kurama, and Kurama doing the same within his cage. The two fox-like beings, though being of opposite races, wanted to rip each other's throats out. The two that were holding a mutual respect and had some amusement with Naruto's week of training were no longer in the premises of Naruto's mind. Only two beings that hated each other, as one stopped one's chakra from continuing to corrupt the boy and the other at rage from the other's actions. What in the hell are you two doing? He roared out at the two. You two are making me even more pissed off. I'm trying to stop you from using Kurama's chakra. It's too potent and addicting for even you. Kamina snarled as he held a firm grip on the beast's chakra, which was slightly burning him, but at the same time his chakra was affecting Kurama, but not to the same extent. It was simply giving the Crimson Fox a headache from hell. I understand your anger, Naruto, but you do not need to let your rage get the best of you. You are not to let this beast let you become consumed by your anger even further than you are now, Kamina said as he pushed the Bijuu's chakra back. The fool deserves it. The pervert had information about the boy's past that he had deserved to know, but kept it hidden about it. How would you feel if you had no information about your own family? Kurama snarled as he looked at the boy. I wouldn't have a doubt that Kushina would have felt the same way. he said, giving a slight feral grin before Naruto gave him a glare with his own crimson fox-like eyes. I may be pissed at Jiraiya, but don't think you have the same right to talk about this Kushina lady or about my family, even if she was your host or not. His crimson eyes were cold as he huffed heavily. You of all beings should have told me if you knew that woman, but I guess even you don't have the heart to tell a young boy his one wish as he was orphaned and to become pariah by the people who fear you, Naruto said as he turned as he growled deeply before looking back. I want answers, and if I can't get them the easy way, I'll get it the only way possible, by breaking them. How are you going to do that, Naruto? Let your rage out of control. Kamina stared at the young blonde with narrowed eyes. It would be pointless to do so. Your rage will blind you, and even as strong as you think you are, your words are simply that. Words. You're not even at a level to compare yourself to Jiraiya. The Raijuu told the boy in hopes that the blonde will come to his senses. The Jinchuriki stopped as he looked at the Thunder Beast with a serious look. With what I've been taught, even if I'm not at the level of that pervert, I will give him a piece of my mind no matter how many times I fall. I will make him regret lying to me. He slowly faded from his mindscape before leaving parting words. No more goofing off, no more games, no more childish antics. This time, the mask comes off all the way, he said. He opened his eyes to see the rocky ruins of the once great village. His crimson eyes were now colder, having a pale blue illuminate within the crimson, his whiskers feral. The outlines of his eyes and lips bore a black, aggressive nature of that of a fox, and his hair was wild. Yet among all that, his anger was still his own, even with what little of the Kyuubi's chakra was in him at the moment. His chakra fluxed, releasing as he stared out at the campsite that was not too far ahead of him. His eyes narrowed, clenching the scroll in his hand as he walked forward. He was going to get as much information out as possible from the Toad Sage. You better pray, Erosenin, cause you're going to feel the wrath of an Uzumaki, he yelled in his mind as he marched onwards to the campsite. Naruto and Jiraiya's campsite. Jiraiya was sitting on the riverside trying to come up with some inspiration for his next novel, Ika Tactics. He sighed as the ideas were found to be lacking. There are no women to peep on here, he said. His eyes brightened, however, as he came to realize something. Naruto's Oiroke no Jutsu. The Gaki is a genius for creating that jutsu. Maybe he'll let me see it again, and then I can get some inspiration for the book. He giggled perversely before hearing the snapping of a twig and the rustling of vegetation. His eyes narrowed as he whipped out a kunai and clutched it in a reverse grip in case it was an enemy. He then released a breath of relief when he found that it was his 14-year-old pupil that emerged from the brush. Oh, it's just you, Naruto. Where'd you get that big scroll? On second thought, before you answer, I have something else to ask you. Silence, Erosenin! Naruto roared, silencing his sensei. Jiraiya raised a curious eyebrow. Naruto, what's up with the angry face? Why are you so mad? He asked. Naruto's eyes flashed crimson and Jiraiya took a step back in surprise as he felt the killing intent that shot forth from his blonde disciple. Why am I so mad, Erosenin? You want to know why? Well, first answer me this. Tell me, where are we? Jiraiya blinked in confusion. What are you talking about, Gaki? We're in Yuzuno-kuni, he replied. Naruto stamped the large scroll in his arms on the ground and stared at Jiraiya with pure unadulterated rage, and there was a hint of betrayal in there as well. Jiraiya wondered why Naruto was feeling this way only to be tossed the large scroll. Read the last entry, he told his sensei. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed at the rude tone his student spoke to him with, but decided to humor the boy. He opened the scroll and skimmed through it before reaching the last entry. As he had reached the last entry, he came to realize just why Naruto was so angry with him. He gulped audibly as he read the author of the scroll's final entry before looking up at Naruto, whose eyes bore vertical slits for pupils. Naruto, Now tell me, Jiraiya-sensei. Naruto spoke the name of his sensei, venom evident in his tone, which caused the older man to wince. Where the fuck are we? Jiraiya felt his heart beat faster slightly, guilt coming in as his eyes lowered once he closed his eyes and sighed. He understood the reasons why Naruto was like this, the betrayal of coming here, not knowing that this was his ancestral home until today. The boy had probably figured that Jiraiya had known and probably felt betrayed by him. He was so right on the point that the boy assumed he knew the information he so desperately wished to know. Jiraiya knew so much about his heritage. The Uzumaki clan were his inspiration for using seals before they fell and even afterwards as he grew to become a master, but nothing that will be compared to Kushina or her family members. The boy was denied so much, he was put through more than what any normal shinobi or human being could ever handle. The isolation, the glares, the insults, all of them would drive any man insane. He was surprised the boy hadn't left the village to live in a different one. However, as much as he wanted to tell the boy, he just couldn't bring himself to it. If he told him about his father, he would be hunted down by IWA ninja, possibly Kumo. He could tell him about his mother, but even still he was worried about what the boy's reaction would be. "I am sorry, Naruto. I just can't." He saw the boys become unmoving, but there was a hint of loathing behind them, and he could see it. "I can't tell you yet, not until you're ready," he said calmly. "Oh, so you think I'm not ready to know anything?" Naruto lowered his head as he chuckled ominously as he glared at the white-haired man coldly. "What gives you the right to think I'm not ready to know anything when it's my own right to know who my parents were, who my clan members were? To hear you say that I'm not ready? It disgusts me," he said as his eyes darkened. "I'm not some war orphan Jiraiya. I'm the damn host of Kyubi no Yoko. I'm the pariah of the village of Kanohigaku no Sato. I'm the child who is lashed by everyone because I bear the being who caused the destruction of the village 14 years ago. If I find knowledge about my clan and someone knows of it, you bet your damn life I'm going to get anything out of it." Jiraiya slightly narrowed his eyes as he looked at Naruto. No matter how much the blonde's words had hurt, to say a threat that he couldn't back up was cocky and arrogant on the blonde's part. "So you're going to try to force information out of me?" The large man smirked at the boy's serious look. "What makes you think you can? I'm one of the Sannin. I've trained the Yondaime Hokage to become what he was. I'm on par with a Kage. What makes a genin like you think you have what it takes to face me?" he said. Naruto slightly smirked upon the middle-aged man's words. "Well, as the ninja code says." He disappeared into a burst of speed and Jiraiya's eyes widened as the blonde came right in front of him with his fist already reared back for a punch. "Look underneath," he said as his fist had connected to Jiraiya's forearm, which the older man had raised to block the strike. He launched another first as he rapidly punched the Sannin's forearms with heavy hits. "Drown you out by crossfade." Jiraiya was slightly surprised by the blonde's burst of speed. With the weights and seals on him, he should have slowed down to a low chunin speed or high genin speed. However, seeing now that his speed was still at a high chunin level speed. His hits, though were of rage, were strong on their own accord as well, about a low chunin or near mid chunin. His attacks were slow though due to the heavy baggage on him. He must have been hiding his full skill from me. With the weights off, he must be around a mid-jonin level speed. Compared to his fight with Niji, he only brought this kind of speed with Kyubi's chakra. This is all him, but why hide it, he thought. Jiraiya noticed the blonde's leg come at him from the side and he grabbed it with ease before he threw the blonde a great distance back. Naruto slammed on the ground once, but quickly leaped back as he skidded a few yards on his feet. He snarled as he made a hand sign. The cross-shaped hand sign for his signature jutsu. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He had summoned 10 clones. The blonde looked at Jiraiya with narrowed eyes and then knelt down as he looked at his clones and sent them out to go. The 10 clones prepared their kunai as all of them charged at the white-haired ninja. They all rushed out, scattered as 3 jumped into the air, 2 slid on the ground aiming at the Sannin's legs and the remaining half prepared a frontal assault. Jiraiya gasped at the ones descending and quickly grabbed the closest one. He then jumped back, bunshin in hand, in order to avoid the strikes from the other 9 Kage bunshins. As he landed, he grabbed the captive clone's wrist and he took the kunai away from him. Throwing it at one of the charging ones, he impaled it through the skull, causing it to poof out of sight. As he did that, he held the Kage bunshin he had captive and threw it back at another one of the clones, sending the 2 rolling on the ground. He then quickly ducked beneath a punch from another airborne bunshin. He then twisted to catch the clone by the ankle since it had overshot its target, and with amazing strength, the white-haired shinobi launched the doppelganger towards the two of its brethren that Jiraiya had knocked aside earlier, hitting the other two directly, leaving them to explode into a cloud of smoke upon impact. As the other 6 came, he quickly flashed through hand signs and slammed his hand on the ground before they could come any further. Doton, Yomi Numa! Soon the earthly ground collapsed onto the clones, causing them to fall into an adhesive mud-like substance that was similar to quicksand. As they continued to move around, they groaned as they all exerted too much chakra, as some had disappeared while the remainder of the clones' strike force had sunk into the mud before dispersing themselves. Naruto's eyes slightly narrowed as he had received the memory from his clones and closed his eyes. This was going to take more than he anticipated, but just from his clones' memories he had a few strategies devised within his mind. Jiraiya using that Doton had caused a frontal assault to become useless except for a few feet in front of the Toad Sage. Naruto opened his eyes once more and grunted before summoning 40 clones around him. 10 of you, go in front, he muttered. The command proceeded as 10 of the clones began the assault, and they charged toward the Sannin member. Naruto looked over at 12 of his clones nearest to him, and quickly told them the first plan. He heard multiple proofs as his first 10 clones died out, leaving an unharmed Jiraiya. He smirked slightly as he instructed another 18 to rush out. The large group headed out as they all held out their hands mid-sprint. Chakra and wind swirled into a single compact orb of rapidly rotating chakra. He had mastered the Rasengan with a clone in 1 week. Why couldn't he do the same when performing, and mastering it, with one hand? As the multitude of Rasengans stabilized in their hands, they jumped over the swamp as they dove towards the long-haired man. Jiraiya made a couple hand signs before clapping his hands together. Ninpo, Hari Jaizo. His long hair lengthened to even greater lengths, and then wrapped around his body. Every single hair follicle became charged with chakra, sharpening the strands as they shot outward like porcupine quills, hitting several of the aerial clones which all had dispersed. A plume of smoke indicating they had indeed disappeared. He stared at Naruto and frowned. You're going to have to try a lot harder to get me to talk gaki. He paused in his speech before he noticed something completely off with the Kagebunshin army. Last he had checked there were 12 clones plus Naruto in front of him. Now there were only 3. Where did the other 10 go? He thought. His eyes widened as he heard the ground crumble below him as a clone shot upward from the rocky earth, its fist aiming up at Jiraiya's chin. The Sannin moved a foot back, dodging the rising fist, and quickly raising his leg up, he slammed it into the clone's ribs, sending it into the distance as it exploded into smoke upon impacting with a tree. He quickly heard multiple sounds of burrowing from the ground as 4 clones from each side of him launched out of the ground, preparing to bring help to the Gamma Sannin. Jiraiya shifted into a stance with his palms positioned at his hips and his right leg placed behind his left. Twisting his body at the hip, he lashed out with a palm strike, resulting in him face-palming one of the clones. He then spun around and slammed his elbow into the stomach of another Kagebunshin. Back-flipping, the Sannin member avoided the double axe kick strike from the other 2 that had emerged from the ground as members of the 4-man underground assault. Jiraiya then landed in a handstand as he saw the clones continue their charge. Showing great skill, Jiraiya parried away their punches and kicks with his legs and feet alone. A 2-punch assault aimed for his spine was formed, but Jiraiya once again parried the blows, sending them to either side of him. After that, he began to rotate on his hands, lashing out with a brutal whirlwind of kicks to the clones' skulls. The first 3 consecutive kicks already brought an end to the stronger clones. Sensing movement near him, Jiraiya stopped spinning and bent his arms at the elbows so that he would be able to push off. As he did that, he twisted in midair and performed 2 straight kicks, each kick hitting a single clone in the face. As those 2 clones dispersed, the white-haired man took out a kunai and collided his blade with another Kagebunshin's. He then moved aside the shorter male in order to duck beneath the diving clone that aimed to crash into his skull, stabbing said clone in the stomach as it appeared overhead. As he did that, he kicked the kunai-wielding clone in the stomach before throwing his kunai at it, impaling it through the chest. As the clones died, Jiraiya noticed one more clone came out of the ground, only this time with a Rasengan in hand. The clone was only a few feet from the elite shinobi. His chakra sphere reared back and he thrusted it forward, aiming it directly at the man's sternum. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes at the closeness of the sphere, only being a few mere inches from his chest. Though his eyes could see the ball clear as day, the boy was fast, but he had to be a lot faster to provoke him to such an extent. He raised his arm and snuck it within the cage Bunshin's guard before striking the Rasengan holding arm, diverting the attack. The clone's eyes widened as it neared the ground only for Jiraiya to grab it and turn it around so it faced him once more. The white-haired sage grabbed the clone's wrist as he shifted the attack towards the clone's gut, reversing the Rasengan completely as it shredded the clone's flesh. In a plume of smoke, the Kage Bunshin was defeated. He raised his head as he looked back. The boy was using tactics with his clones to see what weak spots were open, and thus when the time was right he would send out the clones that were hidden after the others failed to do so. This was nothing like he had seen from Naruto after noticing the boy's personality. The boy was dumb, but was that all a farce, a facade to simply let people believe he was this dumb boy, who in truth was intelligent in his own way? For a slight moment he had regretted not properly training the boy right if he was actually like this as well as learning battle tactics. The sound of feet rushing came to his ears as he turned back seeing the boy and his clones coming to battle. What battle strategy had he planned this time? Blue eyes with vertical slits for pupils burned with anger as the blondes rushed out towards Jiraiya and they shot into the air. Just as Jiraiya came to prepare himself for the battle, his eyebrows rose in surprise as the clones smirked. They made a simple hand sign, the basic ninjutsu sign for Ram. Smoke enveloped them, and then from out of the clouds came 3 near-naked blonde females. Oiroke no jutsu, the clones said as they winked at Jiraiya, causing the white-haired man to go wide-eyed and have a bloody nose. The distraction had succeeded as the clone narrowed its eyes, launching a deadly kick into Jiraiya's face, sending the man falling backwards. The clone disappeared in smoke, and within that smoke was a glowing blue light which blew the smoke away as a sexy clone had completed forming a Rasengan into the female transformed Naruto's hand which closed in at Jiraiya's sternum. Oiroke Rasengan, Naruto said, slamming the jutsu into Jiraiya as the man fell back. The jutsu caused an explosion as it laid a large amount of smoke and debris in the area. Naruto came out, no longer in his female transformation as he landed across from the blast site just a few yards away. He studied the smoke pile, waiting. He knew that the attack wouldn't take down Jiraiya. The man wasn't a Sannin for nothing. He was a Kage-level ninja, a powerhouse. A simple technique like that wouldn't defeat him. It was only a few brief moments before Jiraiya's shadow stood in the debris. Once it cleared up, it showed the man with little to no harm on him. His clothes, namely the chest area, had a circular hole in it from the Rasengan with a noticeable swirl-shaped burn mark there as well, while the rest of his attire had only a little amount of tearing. His eyes showed a hard exterior to them as he frowned at Naruto. Okay, if that's how you want to play Naruto, then I will do that, but you're going to regret it, Naruto. This was no easy Jiraiya. This was the man who was going to give the boy his just desserts. He made hand signs as he inhaled air into his lungs. Katon Enden! A large fireball shot out from the man's mouth as it hurtled towards the blonde shinobi. Our favorite blonde's eyes widened slightly as he rushed many yards back to avoid the oncoming attack, preparing to dodge to his left. Though he felt heat coming towards that side as he looked quickly and noticed a second fireball on its way toward him. A slight brink of panic entered Naruto as he gritted his teeth. Naruto! Kamina called out from within his mind as he raised his eyes. Manipulate the wind around you in a counterclockwise direction. It will become a vacuum in the air and absorb the oxygen from the flames. Do it now! The Raijuu yelled. Naruto quickly did as he was told, felt the wind around his hands and felt it quickly spinning. He maneuvered it a little as he could feel it reversing into the opposite direction. Once the flames drew close enough, he pressed his hands onto the flames, his hands feeling the heat, but luckily not being burned from the fires as the swirling winds in his hand quickly absorbed the both of the fireball's oxygen, killing the attacks in an instant. The blonde grunted a little as he shook a little. He wasn't used to manipulating the storm elements yet, but he was getting the hang of it. He saw Jiraiya giving a surprised look. A slight grin came upon his face as he wiped sweat from his brow. How did you do that? Jiraiya asked, hoping to get an answer from his godson. It was unnatural for someone to do that unless they had a great grasp of fire manipulation, Though it seemed like it was wind that was coming from the flames, yet wind was fire's opposite. The wind would strengthen flames to such a great extent. Yet the wind had killed the flames. Did the blonde have a great grasp of wind elemental manipulation and keep it a secret? Naruto closed his eyes as he began to channel some of his chakra into his hand. Lightning chakra had formed into a spherical shape in his hand. Once he closed his hand, a sword of lightning the length of his arm came into view. His eyes opened once more as they became serious, a coldness to them. He pointed the lightning sword at his sensei and frowned. "If you want to know, you're going to tie me and sit my ass on the ground if you want what's coming out of my mouth," Naruto said as he rushed out swinging the kodachi-length blade of lightning at the white-haired man, coming at him with his attacks aiming at areas to disable the man such as the joints or nerve areas to cause temporary paralysis. Each strike came smooth and quick, yet all were dodged. Once Naruto drew in close, it soon became the greatest mistake as the back of Jiraiya's hand smacked across Naruto's face, sending the blonde to the ground a few feet from him, and quickly stopped the lightning chakra-natured sword from the boy's hands. Naruto grunted as he slowly got up, but he was grabbed by his hair as he was picked up and hanging almost 2 feet in the air. He grunted as he swung his feet around and growled, shifting his body around as he stared at Jiraiya with angry eyes. Eyes that had quickly returned to their crimson state. He received a quick punch from the Sannin and gasped out in pain, feeling a few of his ribs pop from the pressure of the blow. A second blow came and Naruto could feel that his ribs were greatly bruised up from the pressure of the second punch. His stomach must have been too due to the slight amount of blood coming from his mouth. 3 blows overall had left his body sore and in pain. This was Jiraiya's strength, and Naruto felt he wasn't even going all out for his sake and the man's own. Naruto could feel Kyuubi's healing come through, but it wasn't coming as quick as it should be when he gained extra amounts of the beast's chakra. Perhaps it was still due to Kamina restraining his chakra. He had to make this quick and fast. He could see Jiraiya coming for a 4th punch, but Naruto quickly reacted as he put chakra into his fingertips, which they slowly manipulated into sharp claws. He slashed at Jiraiya's forearm, causing the man to release the grip on his hair as 4 vertical slash marks came onto his arm that was wounded. "Now's my chance." Naruto leaped a few yards back, building up chakra in his body. He raised his hands up as he put his hands together, and slowly the chakra was coming into his hands. He had a week of training from Kamina, and honing his skills on his taijutsu. He wasn't going to give up without pulling out one of his few new tricks. Kamina could feel the gathering of Naruto's chakra and widened slightly at the feeling and looked around. "Naruto, are you crazy, you foolish boy?" Slammed his fist into the ground of Naruto's mindscape. "You don't have control of that technique yet, you're always out of sync with it. Do you not realize the repercussions in doing that attack? It will backfire." He told the boy from within his mind, "What makes you think a week of manipulation and learning the basics of that move will make you completely control it?" Naruto focused the energy in his hands and gave a slight chuckle. "Kamina, you're in my mind, you've seen my memories. You should know well enough by now that I'm a ninja who is unpredictable, one who takes things beyond the limit." His hands glowed a slight blue hue as he grinned. "I make the impossible absolutely possible. Raijuu arc, Shotenjekuha," he yelled as he sent his hands into a downward motion which came to a halt near his chest. An abrupt power had surged through the blonde's hands as blue wind, mixed with lightning, came out of the intertwined hands. The azure tornado charged forward toward the legendary Toad Sage as it grew slightly larger, and the rotation speed began to increase. Jiraiya's eyes widened as he saw the attack come with great speed. He could feel the power of chakra emanating from the attack, and he knew it was a dangerous attack, a high B-ranked jutsu, probably A-ranked. He pulled out a sheet of paper that had the kanji for barrier on it. He threw it in front of him as he made hand signs. "Fuinjutsu, chakra kekai." His chakra pushed into the seal as it surrounded it like a dome. As the attack struck the defensive Fuinjutsu, a large shockwave formed at the point of impact. Slight cracks appeared on the barrier before the attack died down, leaving the barrier looking like it had just been on the verge of shattering. Song end. Jiraiya made haste as he gathered more chakra into the barrier, the cracks slowly reverting away and leaving the barrier as if it was brand new. He held a deep thought in his mind as the barrier slowly began to die down. I've never seen an attack like that one before. It was as if it was a collaboration jutsu. But even if it was one, it would be impossible for one person to do so by himself. He looked over to the blonde as he released the barrier and put the piece of paper back into his pouch. How did he get such a technique? Was it a lost art from the Uzumaki? Did he find a scroll which held that technique? So many things didn't add up now in the man's mind. Naruto took in heavy breaths as he felt his chakra recede back into his body. He took a step forward before dropping down to one knee. He was breathing heavily this time as he looked at Jiraiya. I was in sync, but I didn't have proper control of what amount of chakra to use. It caused me to exert more than I should have put out, the blonde thought as he tried to get up, though his body grew weaker and began to give up on him, wanting rest. Kyuso was the last thought on his mind before falling face first onto the ground, roaming into a deep sleep. Kamina chuckled in the boy's mind as it died down before saying a few words to the boy in his sleeping state. I guess you are indeed an unpredictable boy. I guess you are more interesting than you make up to be. Jiraiya walked over to the boy and stared upon the sleeping blonde. He sighed softly as he grabbed him with his uninjured arm by the waist and carried him up towards the camp, their battle having resulted in them moving away from it. His eyes furrowed as he was lost in deep thought. The boy was deeply angry. Fighting him had proved it, all in order to force what he could get out of Jiraiya. The blonde shinobi had every right to be mad, and he was going to bring hell once he was awake, which Jiraiya knew well if this boy had all of his mother's traits in him. The white-haired man knew whether he liked it or not. It was time for the blonde to know about his heritage, his mother's side for now. He knew though that after this Naruto wouldn't be the same around him, nor would he have such trust in him either. And that was going to be the hard part to bear during the next year and 9 months. 6 hours later. Within his mind, Naruto had stirred as he opened his eyes. Feeling tired but refreshed after burning the majority of his chakra into one attack. He groaned as he rubbed his head. Glancing around, he settled his gaze upon Kamina as the Raijuu gave him a slightly worried look, but at the same time a stern look as well, as if from a teacher or parent disappointed in a child's actions. Naruto closed his eyes and got up as he stared up at the fox hybrid deity, and lowered his head. I know, you told me not to use any of the abilities of the Raijuu arc, even using that attack. Naruto quickly looked up as he frowned. Though you don't know what it is like, I don't know who my parents are. Yet when I found out that I had family here I was ecstatic, but mad because they were all gone, or most of them at least, and that people in Konoha, no, most of the older shinobi knew that I had family, and denied telling me anything. I've been robbed by my right to know who my family was, he said. Kamina stared at Naruto and lowered his head down to the boy's level. I know, boy, I know very well. I've seen many things in all my life. I've lived longer than many creatures on this planet. Possibly more than half of the existing human population combined, and I've seen the damage and the pain that all humans have done to one another during the shinobi era. You aren't the only one who felt such loss and betrayed by his own people he believed in. I'm not the only immortal who has seen this. While few of us there are, we are still here watching over in silence, and while the majority of us do not intervene, I felt it was time that I do so, he said to the blonde. Naruto lowered his eyes in disappointment as he sighed. Yeah, but I screwed up big time. I didn't take heed to your words and I couldn't control myself into using the attack, he said. Kamina's large hand pressed onto Naruto's head as he gave a slight grin. I know I'm not making a mistake in putting my trust in your power or yourself. You have good in you, boy, but you need to listen to me when it comes to controlling your power. Otherwise, if I wasn't sure, I wouldn't have given you your bloodline, and I would have not come across you if your actions weren't true to your words. The beast stood upright and looked down upon the human boy. Never doubt yourself, Naruto. Your faith is always stronger than your anger, and with your faith and actions of positive nature you will no doubt change anyone you come across and change the future of the shinobi nations, he said to Naruto. Naruto smiled at Raijuu's words before he shook his head and began looking around. By the way, why isn't Kyubi saying anything? You two either make fun of me, chat discreetly, or argue with each other. Oh, the runt? Kamina looked over to the cage, seeing the crimson-orange fox sleep heavily in his cage as his ears twitched slightly. Kurama went to sleep right after you passed out, He was bored seeing that your little dispute between you and your master had come to an end. Aside from that, he was getting a headache from my chakra conflicting with his own, Kamina said. Naruto snickered in return, got a low sleeping growl from Kurama and looked back at Kamina. So, what am I going to tell Jiraiya? He's going to want some answers from me after using Shotengekiha on him. Simple, tell him. Naruto widened his eyes slightly. There's no more point in denying him the truth anymore, just as much as there is no point in denying the real you. This facade is going to have to end with being a half-ass moron. It's time for people to accept responsibility for you as well as yourself to accept you for whom you really are. Kamina smirked. As long as you make things easy for them, they'll just get away with doing things. You need to take charge with life and push forward. Serious action will push your drive in being the strongest at the same time making life as enjoyable as possible. The Raijuu gave a grin of wood birth, showing wild canines. Take this advice from an ancient being older than the Kyuubi. I have much wisdom to offer. As much as perverted antics? Naruto asked, receiving narrowed eyes in return. Don't tempt me, Naruto, Kamina said, lightning flickering around his form. Naruto chuckled nervously as the Raijuu raised his hand. Now wake up. Naruto blinked in confusion as Kamina flicked him on the forehead. However, the force behind the finger flick was similar to the one when he was hit by Tsunade. Damn, that woman hits hard, and he was forced out of his mindscape and thus awakening him into reality. Naruto had jumped from the place in which he had awoken upon. The fresh heat of a campfire came and made his body feel like an oven-roasted turkey. He grunted as he arched his back a little to sit up more comfortably. It was early morning, still somewhat dark out, but the sunrise was coming into play very soon. He looked back into the fire and then looked over to see Jiraiya, still awake. The man's eyes weren't tired, but his eyelids were slightly droopy. The man seemed to have been in that same position for hours from deep thought and watching the blonde. It was kind of creeping out Naruto slightly, but the thought let go as his eyes furrowed at the man. While he wasn't as freshly angry as he was hours ago, it didn't mean that the anger wasn't gone. No, it was still there, kicking about like sparks in a dying flame which waited to die out or burn once more. Naruto. The white-haired man paused as he closed his eyes and did the one thing that Naruto thought that he would do in his life. The man had bowed his head to the blonde. I'm sorry, I should have told you from the start about your heritage. I felt it wasn't time for you to know of such knowledge until you were of proper shinobi ranking, though seeing your skills as it is I wouldn't doubt that you've earned the knowledge as of now, Jiraiya said. Naruto raised his eyes a little in surprise, quickly lowering them once more as he frowned. That's no excuse and it's not going to make things easier on you, he said as he looked at the man. I had the right to know such things from the day I was born. No one had the right to take that knowledge away from me, making me feel like I had nothing to begin with. That's not true. Jiraiya looked up at him as he slowly sat down once more. If you had nothing to begin with, as of now I see a lot of things that you had. You have much of your mother's personality, her anger for example. Yet the more I see that serious look upon your face, it makes me see the face of your father, as if he was prepared for battle with nothing to lose. You had your parents in you the entire time, even if they left you in the saddest way possible. Naruto's eyes were more focused in, calm and collective as he stared at the man. So the man did know his parents, but the way he said it made it clear that they were dead. You must have known my parents well to get a grasp of such details from just seeing me. Of course, they had made me your godfather after all, he said, receiving a cold glare from the boy. He frowned a bit. I know you are mad about that, but you must understand that I am a shinobi, a powerful one that has a duty to his village. I'm a master spy with high amounts of information that is important for the Hokage to know and for the safety of the village. As much as I wanted to try and raise you, I couldn't put you at that risk as a child while I'm gathering intelligence, he said. Yet you could have taken me with you at a young age and trained me. You're my fucking godfather, you are supposed to have some damn responsibility to take care of me. The blonde narrowed his eyes, or at least came by to let me know who you were. Naruto turned to face the crackling flames of the campfire. I couldn't do three things at once, Naruto. I can't train and raise you while I'm gathering information on Orochimaru and the Akatsuki organization that he was once in to ensure that your life isn't at risk. He told the blonde as he waved his hand briefly. I did take some responsibility. I bought that apartment complex for you, for example, when you were at a decent age, paid the rent of your home as old man Sarutobi gave you a monthly allowance, which half came from me and half came from your parents from when they died and passed down their money. Scrolls and items down to you. Naruto was quiet for a moment as he gave in. It seemed the pervert actually did do something for him, even if he wasn't there for him for the majority of his life. He was also getting some of his heritage to him, money-wise at least. Yet that wasn't satisfying to him, not in the least. I suppose I have to thank you and Gigi for that, though that doesn't help the fact you knew my parents and never told me. He said as he pointed at the man, so start by telling me who my parents, my family, everything. Jiraiya sighed as he closed his eyes, opening his black eyes to stare at the cold azure blue ones. Alright then, though after this you better tell me everything as well, that power for starters, he said. In my opinion, I wouldn't tell Jack squat to keep this kind of thing from me, since this seems like the situation where I deserve to know about my heritage with no bartering whatsoever. However, seeing as how you give me no choice. Naruto sighed, rubbing his temples as he looked at the fire, and Jiraiya swore for a moment that he looked older, more like his father. Fine, I'll start without wasting any more time then, Naruto quickly replied as he frowned. I'd been putting a damn mask on. Everything that you thought about me being hyperactive and dumb was just a facade. I have high amounts of stamina, but my intelligence is something tricky, while my intelligence was limited due to my ostracized past as being what I am. I was a trickster in some ways. A good hint, for example, is my knack for pranks. I figured that I would make people think I was dumb, that I was reckless in order for me to get accepted as at least the village idiot so I can be accepted more. In which case it had cost me being stuck in the academy for 3 years, failing 3 times, but it was worth it, I suppose. While some people had accepted me before, I wanted to know people I wasn't something God-fearing. If I became a shinobi too early it would have given them a little more fear. I'm not the type of person to use such a tactic against people. The blonde grimaced in disgust, yet at the same time it had cost me the lack of training from Kakashi. It made me an easy target for Sakura to try and take a hit on me, and it also cost me to lose to Sasuke at the Valley of the End. If I wasn't playing dumb, none of those things would have happened. Jiraiya was surprised to say the least. The boy had played a major wild card in his life, and it was perfect for a shinobi skill, masking his true person, his true goal. He was a genius at hiding his intelligence and maturity. He took the ninja code to the exact level as it should be, as it was many years ago during the time Minato was a major leading role in the Third Shinobi War, and from those who took big parts in the Second and First War, as history puts forth. That's quite impressive. Mostly Umbu can do that, yet you've been doing it for God knows how many years. He rubbed his head before looking back at the kid. What about that collaboration jutsu, or that chakra sword in your hand? Oh, right. Naruto sighed, shaking his head before he looked at him. Remember about a little over a week ago when we were in that hotel, you asked me if I was hurt because lightning struck the shoreline? Jiraiya nodded at the question. Well, that wasn't lightning, it was a Raijuu. Silence had consumed the area before Jiraiya gave out a barking laugh and fell backwards. Naruto sighed as ran his fingers through his hair. I knew something like that was going to happen somehow in my mind. I don't find his laughter amusing, Kamina barked out in annoyance. Jiraiya leaned forward once more, holding his laughter, and once it receded inside him. So you're telling me that a thunder beast came down to you from lightning? Well, he's not technically gone per se. He's more in the lines of inside my mind right now. He came inside my body by lightning and well, he's in there with Kyuubi, Naruto simply said. Now Jiraiya was taking this seriously. Hearing that it came down to him was one thing, but being in his mind was another. He had never even heard about thunder beasts being real until now. They were only supposed to be a myth. The loyal follower of Raijuu, of all things, ran through his mind. It sounded like a complete farce. But then again there were Bijuu, unnatural beasts of chakra, but hearing that a real Raijuu was inside the blonde ninja was just so much to process. Alright, Raijuu. In your mind. Okay. He rubbed his temples. So if he is in your mind, then how can you use lightning and wind? Well, he said that my chakra was unique to him. That's why he came inside my mind. Because of my unique heritage he gave me a bloodline. A bloodline to manipulate the elements of storms. I think that's lightning and wind, he says sometimes water, but that depends whether you're by any water landmarks or regions, Kamina tells me. Naruto said the reason he's still inside me was so that he could train me to completely master the bloodline so I could get a full grasp of its power. Jiraiya furrowed his eyes, processing everything he had heard. He would have to trust Naruto on his word alone, as well as the attack he had produced not long ago. He would have to find some way to make contact with the Raijuu somehow, unless he would wait until they got back to Konoha to check Naruto for any mental disorders such as schizophrenia, most likely, if he was hallucinating about some deity in his head and giving him powers. Though Naruto never lied to him, and it felt so real now to know. I suppose he also gave you some ideal taijutsu skills to train with? He asked the blonde. Now that one Naruto would have to lie about. No offense to the fox, but Naruto would not hear the end of it from his godfather if he had got two different taijutsu from Kyuubi's memories. Too much of an annoying situation if that were to in fact be the case. Yes, he said, I'm a speed type. Most of my skill sets rely on my agility, speed, and with my lean build I can move faster and thus strike harder. So he gave me two that would benefit me more than it would him. Naruto lied as he wanted to cut to the chase. He was giving a lot of information as it was, and it was irritating for him not to get all the answers that he wanted to hear. Alright, enough about that. I told you everything I know, now get on with what I have to hear from you. Jiraiya exhaled some air. Much of the information he had gotten from the boy proved to have some worth. At least the boy was getting proper training from one other person, or mythical thunder beast in this case, than himself. It would be up to the man to teach Naruto Fuinjutsu before the boy would become a master on his own, and in addition to chakra training, resistance training and a little bit of ninjutsu before they came home. Half of the things Jiraiya needed to do were basically in the hands of Naruto's friend. Jiraiya had grabbed a stick and then began to draw on the sandy earth, showing three symbols: a fan, a spiral, and a symbol that resembled a forest. For starters, let me give you a brief detail, I suppose. Before the elemental nations came to full existence, there were two clans that were great rivals, the Senju and the Uchiha. They were also considered to be one of the oldest clans of all the elemental nations aside from two other clans, the Hyuga and the Uzumaki. He began to draw a circle around the three symbols. So far, from what I can tell, was that the Uzumaki clan, the Senju clan, and the Uchiha clan are very close to each other, meaning that they might have had a closer relationship in the past as far as I know of. However, blood-wise the Uzumaki clan and Senju clan are distant cousins of one another. Though different, they hold quite the same amount of blood. So I'm related to Bachan in a sense. Naruto cut in as he frowned, another reason to be irritated at people's lack of honesty. He had a feeling he was going to be irritated even more. Does she know? Most likely she knew your mother, so it's obvious that you're cousins through her grandmother. Her grandfather was the Shodame Hokage, her granduncle was the Naidame, her grandmother, the wife of Hashirama Senju, was also an Uzumaki, as well as the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. He said to Naruto as he saw the blonde's wide reaction. Not many knew that, but old man Sarutobi gave me information on past Jinchuriki for the sake of getting any information on what it would be like if you had control of Kyuubi's chakra. Though I think telling you that you should wait until you are more prepared, more trained. Out of you and the other Jinchuriki, Mito Uzumaki was the only one who had full control over the Kyuubi chakra, before she died during the transfer process to make a new Jinchuriki, he said. To Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto thought for a moment as he spoke. Were there any other Uzumaki in Konoha other than her? Aside from herself, no. From what little information we could gather, quite few of the transport boats had survived the onslaught from Kumo and Kiri, while most of the veteran shinobi, including the leader of the village, fought to protect the homeland. It was a long fight, but as you can see, this was the result. Saying to Naruto as he looked around the ruined village. Far as I know, the clans that resided in the village and the handful of surviving Uzumaki had either gone to the other major villages, changing their names, otherwise being scattered across the lands forgetting their clan legacy. Kushina was no more than 7 years old when she came to Konoha. Your mother became the second Jinchuriki after shortly coming. Naruto lowered his eyes and closed his eyes. He figured that Kushina would have been his mother. It sounded so obvious, but he didn't want to simply accept that his mother was Jinchuriki as well. it hurt to know the outcome. As I said before, Uzumakis are well known for their high stamina or longevity, you could say, as well as their mastery of Fuinjutsu. Your mother was chosen to become the next host because Uzumakis had long lives, so holding the kyubi for long periods of time kept people at ease for those who knew. Also that she possessed unique chakra. Her chakra was able to suppress the chakras such as a tailed beast as powerful as kyubi. Yet even as a Jinchuriki that never brought her down, it made her stronger. The old sage smiled slightly. The more I see your hyperactivity, the more I see her in you, just as well as the amount of stamina you carry. Your chakra itself is large even for an Uzumaki, because you are a child of a Jinchuriki, but holding kyubi inside you gives you much more chakra than ever before. Alone, you could have Kage-level reserves by the time we are done with your training, he said. Naruto gave a slight nod in understanding what he had meant. Of course, being a Jinchuriki, it gave him shitty chakra control, but adding that he was the child of one made things annoy him. Though he didn't mind, he was getting stronger because of it. It was thanks to his mother. Yet it made things dwell in Naruto's mind. A Jinchuriki can't survive an extraction, so I think she's not here. He gave a sad smile. I want to know though, was I worth her sacrifice? Being born, I mean? Your mother had a strong seal on her. But a female Jinchuriki has a great weakness at one point of life, Naruto, and that is childbirth. It risks the release of the tailed beast during the time a female Jinchuriki goes into labor, so a seal master is there to make sure the seal is stabilized as the birthing comes into place. I don't know what happened, but the day you were born was the day Kyubi was released, so I'm not sure if her seal failed or if she died during labor. But I do know this, Naruto. He told the boy as he gave a soft smile. That woman loved you more than anything. Hell, whenever I came to visit her and your father, she would always talk to you when you kicked, or when you seemed restless in that fat belly of her. He laughed, though it quickly died down. If anything, her and your father's sacrifice to bring you to this world was more than worth it, because they loved you very much to the very end, he said. Naruto smirked at that. So my Ka-chan was a Jinchuriki and my Tu-san a Kage. I think I can deal with it. Naruto shrugged. I suppose they did it for a good reason. Well, of course. Jiraiya stopped as his eyes went wide, popping out of their sockets as his eyes gazed upon the boy. How did you know? He asked, his question followed by the sputtering of his lips as he tried to comprehend how he managed to figure out his father's identity from all that. Ero-sennin, I'm blonde, not stupid, no matter how I acted before. There are many reasons I know just by guessing. He held out 4 fingers and curled them down by order as he spoke the reasons. 1. You said you knew both my Ka-chan and Tu-san, and knowing that you know the only blonde with my kind of hair color and style is the Yondaime Hokage. 2. He's the only seal master other than you and Ka-chan that was in the village, though you weren't there, so it was up to him to do the seal checkups. 3. The Yondaime Hokage sealed Kyubi and me. I don't think he would be heartless to put it in a family or orphan child. It would have to be someone who was there, someone close. Lastly, it was ironic if the fact that Ka-chan married Yondaime just as Mito married Shodaime, he said, getting up and patting his pants to get debris off. Jiraiya simply blinked, stunned at the notion of reasons that his godson had put out. While remarkable, it was rare for such things to cross anyone's mind. If anyone had thought like the boy just did, then everyone in the village would have seen him as was meant to be, a hero. Though life doesn't seem to go that way, and it was sad to realize that, Jiraiya saw that Naruto would make a path for people to see things like that as clear as day. Maybe, this kid is who I am looking for, he thought before noticing the blonde leaving the campsite. The large man got up and looked at Naruto's back as he walked off. Where do you think you're going, Gaki? He asked. Naruto simply shrugged and waved his hand. I'm going back to the ruined vault. I'm going to gather as much of everything in that room and seal them in storage scrolls. I feel it's my birthright to claim it just as much as it's my right to claim this my home. That way history will never erase the Uzumaki clan and people will know that there are still remnants of the dead clan here today. Naruto looked back as he smirked. I'm making it my goal just as much as becoming Hokage and bringing Duck as home. I'm going to rebuild the Uzumaki clan, whether I have a family in the future, if I adopt anyone in, or even if I find other Uzumaki like me. I will bring them to Konoha, and when we flourish once more they will come back here and rebuild, thus beginning the cycle of the whirlpool once more. Naruto stopped before he looked back upon Jiraiya and smirked, and when I come back, there will be no more distractions, no more going easy. I want to put my training to the fullest in order to become strong for myself, and those I care for, and to show that I am not the Kyuubi, but I am myself. I am Uzumaki Naruto, no one else. 3 months later. Waves moved through the ocean current past a ferry. The cool misty air seemed to keep the temperatures of early spring around the low 50s around the ocean. Naruto was leaning on the rail of the ship, his hair slightly longer in length. He was about a few inches taller as well, growing from 5 feet 1 inch to 5 feet 6 inches. His muscle mass had built up somewhat as his biceps and triceps showed some slight tone definition in them, and some of the baby fat from his face had burned off. The blonde was wearing new threads compared to his jumpsuit. He wanted to honor his heritage, his family, by wearing the Uzumaki standard shinobi outfit, though he made some slight changes to them. He wore a sleeveless black and teal shirt with a black bandana around his neck with a red Uzumaki symbol showing. He also had a set of black pants and black sandals on to match his gear. On his back was a kodachi in which he found untouched in the vault, hidden within many of the clothing and scrolls. The blade was black within a black sheath with the handle longer than a normal short sword. On the side of his pants were 2 kunai pouches, each holding a slim large black kunai meant for close-range long-term battles and smaller ones for range. Overall, in the 3 months, his training was greatly worth it, but he still had much to go for. Most of his training with Jiraiya was honing his physical attributes, strength, chakra control, speed, and agility, which was still going with almost double the amount he had before. Along with learning Fuinjutsu and learning a couple of ninjutsu. He had become an expert in a short time, and he had begun learning his affinities for the start of his elemental ninjutsu training. Surprisingly, he had an affinity for wind as his primary element, with lightning and fire as a secondary. He had asked Kamina why he never had water. All the Raijuu could say was that Kyuubi's affinity had overpowered his other secondary affinity. Though it didn't bother Naruto much, while Jiraiya had taught him a couple katan jutsu, Naruto had learned 2 Raiten and Futon jutsu from the scrolls left in the vault. He was thankful for that, since when he had learned more about his heritage he had found that most of the Uzumaki clan bore a water affinity with earth or lightning as secondary. They had little katan users in the village, which was surprising to know since quite a lot of people held the katan. Other than his training with Jiraiya, his training with Kamina had gotten him to great levels. He was able to sink in with his manipulation with wind and lightning and learn 3 of the 10 attacks he was to learn for his bloodline. That training helped with much of his elemental manipulation for 2 out his 3 affinities. His skills with his taijutsu were growing just as much as his physical training. He was quite adept at using Hiryu-ken, while Yasei no Kitsun-ken, he was still in the process of learning. After all, one does not become a master of a taijutsu style overnight. His physical capabilities had increased tenfold, or so he had been told by his pervert of a sensei. Once he had those weights and seals off, Jiraiya told him that he would be around Kakashi's level, the level of an elite jounin, within the next year. Naruto looked over to see Mizu no Kuni just a few hours away. He could hear Jiraiya talking to the female captain of the boat on what seemed like a new piece for his Ika series. His sweat dropped as Jiraiya was suddenly kicked in the balls, sending him crumpling to the deck of the ship with the captain releasing a cry of hentai. Turning away from his damaged teacher, Naruto stared back at one of the 5 great elemental nations. Once they get to Mizu no Kuni, Naruto would hope to expect more growth and development for him, as well as the wonders of what would Kirigakure be like after a couple years and being in a civil war. Naruto couldn't help but bear a fox grin on his face.